over, and the Lakers were in this in-between phase of trying to figure out, all right, what's the next generation of Lakers basketball going to be? And Jerry West eventually grabs not just me or not just you or not just some other 40-year-old out there that's kind of like around the same age, but he's grabbing people that have nothing to do with Los Angeles. He's grabbing people that become part of that Laker brand. Is you don't have to be born and raised in Los Angeles to cheer for the Lakers. Do you know how powerful of a brand you have to have and you have to build to say, I got people in Atlanta, I got people in Memphis, I got people in in San Francisco, whatever the case is. We all have somewhat of an imprint, and today we'll do as best as we can to remember what he's done, obviously within the game of basketball, and I'm sure much further than that.
Greg, I think that's one of the interesting things is what Slee just mentioned right there, which is depending on your entry point, Jerry West means something different to you. It's all good, but it's a different. And for instance, my dad is 76. Okay, Jerry West was his guy. Jerry West was his favorite player as a kid. Jerry West was the person that my dad was a college basketball player. Jerry West was the guy, right? Well, I never experienced Jerry West as a player. I only knew Jerry West as the executive. I only knew Jerry West. Like, I remember my dad telling me, he's a great player. I'm like, no, I know he got Magic. I know he got Kareem. I know he got Kobe and Shaq. Like, what do you mean he was a great? I mean, I knew it like intellectually, but it depends on how old you are, your entry point into the Jerry West experience, and whether you're 76 like my dad, or you're 52 like me, or you're 40 like Al, or you're somewhere down that. You had the Jerry West experience. It's just, where did you jump onto the train?
Yeah, and jumping onto that train, for me was, I'm just like you, Al. That's kind of where we are the same age. We got in at the exact same time. For me, it was in that point in those early 90s. Nick Van Exel. Nick Van Exel was that guy that really got me into
Eddie Jones,
Cedric Sedale 3, George Lynch was on those teams. Cedric Sabalos, Vlade Divac. Those were the teams, and he built those teams. They didn't win, but they eventually turned into winning. Those teams were what got me into Laker basketball, and that was built by Jerry West. I think we don't really think about it, that he did build all those teams. He built Showtime. He built the 90s teams, the Shaq and Kobe. He even went further into other teams and did just that. It wasn't just the Lakers. It was what he did for basketball in general. He built the biggest teams you could think of.
Every time, and you said something, and you said that you didn't know Jerry West as a player. You knew him as an executive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, which executive?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it could be the executive.
Built those teams.
It could be the executive that people today are talking about. Man, do you see what he did with that Showtime era? It could be the executive, the Shaq and Kobe era, or it could be an executive that was a part of Pau Gasol and the Memphis Grizzlies, or it could be an executive that became a consultant for the Golden State Warriors and said, if you trade Klay Thompson, then I'm out of here. Which executive? That executive goes from 19, you figure out which era of executive.
70-something.
And as we sit here today, I'm sure there's a lot of other radio stations across the country who are going to honor him, but also have a personal connection with their team, and it's not just one team.
It's one of the more remarkable careers in pro sports, but I think it's bigger than that. I think it's one of the more remarkable lives in American pro sports, that this is somebody who grew up in extreme poverty. This is somebody who grew up with an abusive household, who grew up in incredibly challenging circumstances and rose to become world famous in Los Angeles. For a variety, think about that. And I know there's lots of rags to riches stories, but this was where he found refuge in basketball, where this became his place where he could find order and structure and safety in his life as he was a kid, and then as a college player, and then as an Olympian, and then as a professional player. And this was somebody that not just made a bunch of baskets. He did.
Yeah, he did that too.
He made a bunch of baskets, 4th highest scoring average ever, no 3-point line. Okay?
Jeez.
That's pretty crazy.
NBA leading scorer for anybody under 6'2".
He had an unbelievable ability to make trades that always benefited his team. right? I'm sure there's one or two out there that kind of were a nothing burger, but not many, and they were giant swings. Iconic moments. His career as a player is a whole show, is a life well lived. His career as an executive is a life well lived. His career as an ambassador for the NBA and somebody that could move around and create all these different things is a life well lived. He coached for a brief period of time. He was really good at that too. Like there really wasn't any part of this that wasn't deeply interesting, highly successful, and incredibly complicated. I mean, this is a complicated individual with a complicated history. Like, he had some real idiosyncrasies that made him even more interesting. Al, you've heard me talk about this forever and ever. I love stories. I love interesting people. I like the stories about him not being able to watch the game and driving around town and not even able to listen. More, please. Like, what makes that guy go? Did he put this thing together? There's just no part of his life that isn't deeply, deeply interesting.
So to go with that, that's everything that you're talking about. When you get into the Hall of Fame, it's amazing to make the Hall of Fame. For all the reasons that you just laid out, he is a three-time Hall of Famer. How do you become a three-time Hall of Famer? He went as a player, he went as an Olympian, and then as a contributor. They basically a Jerry West wing to make that happen. It's kind of out of control to be somebody that, and like you said, when he growing up in the poverty and in an abusive household, to be able to pull himself out of all that and just focus directly onto basketball. That's all he did. He focused on it in every moment of his life, from the time he was a kid to the time he died. That was all he cared about, was basketball.
And you think about there are people in the world, Al, that you hear the name and you instantly associate them with a thing, with a team, with a company, or whatever it is, right? When you hear the name Vin Scully, it's Dodgers.
Yep.
You hear the name Babe Ruth, it's the Yankees, right? And Babe Ruth played for other teams, but it's the Yankees. Mm-hmm. There are some people that are 100% identifiable with one thing, and when it's a big one, like it's the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Los Angeles Lakers. When you think of Jerry West, I know he worked for other teams, but you think of the Lakers. And you don't think of, and I don't mean this disrespectfully in any way, it's not the Portland Trailblazers, it's not the Phoenix Suns, it's the Lakers. And when you start talking about them, there are 4 or 5 names that instantly come to mind. There's Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Chick Hearn, right? Dr. Jerry Buss, Kobe Bryant. And Jerry West is absolutely associated with not 1, not 2, but probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different eras of Laker basketball.
Look here, and it's crazy to look at one individual's accolades, like you just said, as far as his Hall of Fame three times. It just doesn't make any sense.
Ridiculous.
But I think the thing here that is so impressive to me, of everything that this guy accomplished as a player, as everything that this guy, as we remember him for, he's an 8-time NBA champion as an executive. An 8-time champion as an executive. And it's like we always look at it. I'm sure Trav, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who have interacted with Jerry West over the years and have personal stories about him.
I can't wait to tell you mine
individually.
now.
And I'm
excited. Can't wait.
And I don't know the stories, so I'm excited to hear them. But I think of one thing. It's like, what's more baller than I'm the logo of the NBA? Jerry West is the logo of the NBA. You know that sport that you watch 100 times during the year that you absolutely love, and there's just the logo that represents it? That's Jerry West. Of
you know
all
what's great
his
about
accolades,
it too?
I'm like, the dude is the freaking logo.
It is tremendous. It's the ultimate honor. Hey, what's the thing that personifies our sport better than anything? How about that guy? And it's a silhouette. It's not like it's his face. You know it's him instantly when you see it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's respectful. It's all those things. And that he didn't like it is exactly what makes him him.
It's so Jerry West.
So uncomfortable with the attention, the accolades, the this. And oh, by the way, you're the logo.
I was thinking about it this morning when I was driving in. Like, is there anybody in any sport, pick a sport, it doesn't matter, that has as much to do with the sport, was as successful as he was, accomplishments, to be as great at playing the game, being executive, Olympian, all that stuff? Is there anybody in any other sport that is as accomplished as this man?
To go this many eras too?
And yes,
yeah, think about it. So you could say that this player had X amount of championships. Okay, but What about if this guy was around the game for 50 years and was still having those accomplishments?
What Greg just said is really
50-plus years.
60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, 10s, and 20s.
Fingerprints.
All of them. That's 5 decades. That's dumb. It's dumb in the best possible
I don't
way.
think there's
nobody
an answer.
else. There's nobody else.
Is there anybody else? Think of all the sports out there. I mean, the only thing that I could even think of remotely is you start thinking of, all right, the most successful owners. But that owner...
But they're not players usually.
I was going to say that owner is basically, that's it. It's them as an owner. It's not them as a player, logo, whatever else.
So unique is the different silos that he was able to do it in. Like,
player.
You talk about hitting it for a long period of time. The answer is Scully, right? He showed up in the 50s, and they kept it rolling until very, very recently. So, but he did one thing.
It was
he
one
did
role.
Exactly.
It
But I know what
amazing
you're
in the
saying.
role.
I know what you're saying.
It was the best
the
role
best
ever.
at it, but it was one role.
He was the voice of the Dodgers in basically baseball for 60-plus years.
Yeah.
It was all kind of basketball, but it was a million different types of basketball. Like you mentioned, Slee, I had a chance to spend a day with him at one point. We had dinner, we played golf, and it was one of the great days of my life. And you got a really good idea of why Jerry West was Jerry West. I'm going to tell you some of those stories coming up in just a little bit. Plus, want to hear what you think about Jerry West, your memories of Jerry West, the impact that he had on your life as Laker fans, as basketball fans. We're going to get to all of that. We're celebrating the life of Jerry West, who passed earlier today at the age of 86 years old. It's Travis Slee, 710 ESPN.
Quarter after 9 a.m. on 710 ESPN, a very special live and local hour as we remember the great Jerry West, passing away today at the age of 86. Travis, Sliwa, corporate Greg here on 710 ESPN.
Where do you start? Where do you start with somebody who did so many different things as a player, who did so many different things as an executive? He went to the Final Four as a college player. He's an Olympic gold medalist. If you just read his Wikipedia entries, it would take 20 minutes.
We don't have enough time.
Exactly. It's
We're
pretty crazy.
only live till 7 p.m. tonight, so that's how long it's going to be.
5:30, we're going to
that's right. That's
NBA
right.
Finals.
How dare you, Slee?
Come on, Slee, NBA Finals. Plug it.
How dare you?
Game 3.
Game 3 tonight, guys. Game 3.
I want to start here, then we're going to take some phone calls, and I want to tell you a little bit about the afternoon/evening I got to spend with Jerry West several years ago. The man was part of the NBA Finals 17 times as a player/executive. 17 times, right? We talk about a guy that gets a ring, that goes to the finals a time. Like, we're like, hey, Luka got to the finals. Okay, cool. Go do it 16 more times.
Every stat that you give is getting more ridiculous by the stat. It's like that's out of control. The 3 times is out of control. The 50 years in the league is crazy. Do you have any more amazing stats that go along with that?
Okay, I'm going to rip through these quickly. Okay, so just and we'll spend time on each of them individually as we continue to go through the show here today. He's a member of the team that won 33 games in a row, which is an NBA record. He has the 4th highest scoring average in NBA history, which, of course, was accomplished without a three-point line. He's the only man to win the MVP of the NBA Finals on the losing team. He made 14 All-Star games. He was 12 times All-NBA. He was part of the All-75 team on the 75th anniversary of the NBA. He was a 2-time All-American. He was the Final Four most outstanding player on a losing team. Again, he was a gold medalist in 1960. He was part of 17 NBA Finals, and he is a 3-time member of the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Can I tell you something?
Give me one of those, by the way. Just one.
Well,
I want an accolade like that. Just one of them.
Here's what happens, I think, when you have players of that, or when you have individuals of that caliber that accomplished all these things. You know, unfortunately, but this is just kind of how life works. You really go out of your way to spend some time and let it soak in of what this individual did. And typically that happens after they pass. That's just, or maybe they get inducted into the Hall of Fame and you spend a lot of time saying, okay, hey, this is what this individual did. This is their day. And there's X amount of players, NFL, NBA, that get inducted into the Hall of Fame. The list that you just put out, and I think, Berg, you said something. Can we just stop at one of those for a quick second? You start not even appreciating just how exclusive every single one of those things are.
Yes.
And it's nobody's fault. It's just when you're so brilliant at what it is that you do, it is so difficult to stop and truly appreciate what that man has done to the game and his accomplishments. The uncomfortableness of him never wanting the accolades, people not wanting the limelight. He didn't. That's not, some people might fake that stuff. No, this dude literally was uncomfortable with all of that.
But he would also do it, which made it even more fascinating. Like, there are people that are reclusive. There are people that do not want to be the center of attention, that just will do anything they can to avoid it. But he also understood, I need to do this. I am the face of the Lakers. I am the guy that put these teams together. I am the one
helps me get to where my goal is.
Not that it happened often, but when it wouldn't work, he would stand up and take responsibility for it. If somebody wanted to ask him questions about the team, he would do it. He wasn't seeking it out the way that some people do, but he was also willing. And by the way, once you got him talking, he was endlessly fascinating. And he was an open book. Like, there was not a lot of misdirection and artifice with Jerry West. He would tell you what was on his mind.
He didn't like it, but he knew that he had to do it. It was a part of who he was and everything that he was doing. And you probably saw a lot of this when you were playing golf with him. I mean, how he was. He probably was a little bit reclusive until you actually got him talking.
Okay, so I've got 6 stories I can tell from this day. I want to start with
one.
I want to start with this one because I think it kind of touches on what we were just talking about. Jerry West was a longtime member at Bel Air Country Club. Pretty nice place, by the way.
It's okay. Bel Air.
I was and am, I haven't seen him in a while, but friends with PGA Tour player Steve Elkington, who whenever Steve Elkington would come through Los Angeles, he would very graciously call me and say, hey, I'm playing golf this afternoon. Would you like to join me? I would love to. Frequently, our destination was Bel Air Country Club. And we would play with this member or that member, and it was always wonderful. And he calls me one day, and he's like, Trav, I'm coming in. Do you want to play golf this afternoon? Bel Air. I said, you know what, Elk, I would love to. I can't do it today. He goes, no, you're coming today.
Yeah, this isn't a question.
And I'm like, I got something. He goes, Travis, you're not Liz. You're coming to Bel Air today. I'll see you there at 2:00. All right. Who are we playing with? Just show up at 2:00. I get there at about 2:30. I'm late. I couldn't get away from work. I finally get there, so I go into the clubhouse. I go to.
Were you with Rome at this time?
I was working for Jim, and they say, "Oh, yeah." I said, "I'm here. I'm a guest of Steve Elkington's. I know they teed off. I'm a little bit behind." And they go, "Great. We'll run you out to the group." Jump in the golf cart. They run me out to the group. Pulling up, and I see, looking at this. I see Elk, and he's kind of waving at me, and there's another person in the group. Got to play with a member at Bel Air. Pull up to the tee on the third hole, which I believe is a little par 3 over water. And Jerry West is standing on the tee. And as somebody that has followed sports, works in sports, talked about sports, I'm slack-jawed. Like, I've seen all these. I'm just like, wait, it's a real person?
Jerry
it's like a
West.
comic book character.
Yep.
And Elk's like, "Hey, Trav, good to see you." And, "Hey, Elk, how you doing?" He goes, "Trav, let me introduce you to." I'm like, I know who that is. and he comes over
Hello,
to me,
Mr. Logo.
holds his hand out, says, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Jerry." I said, "Yes." And he's a little cool at the beginning. Just not, "Hey, welcome." It was just, "I'm Jerry," And I said, "Thank you so much for having me out." He's like, "My pleasure."
It's just the three of you?
Nah, there's 2 or 3 other people.
Okay.
But there are 4 players. There's a couple caddies, and I forget who else was in the group.
Great.
And Elkington says to him, "Hey, you probably know Trav." And I'm thinking, no, he doesn't. And he goes, "He produces the Jim Rome Show." And he looks at me. He goes, "I've been on that show." And my heart drops.
Because you don't know his reaction.
Did you book him?
Positive,
Yes,
negative.
But exactly. Yeah. I don't know what that means. I know that he knows that he was on it. I don't know if it means that he had a good experience, a bad experience, a neutral experience. He says, "I've been on that show." And then goes back to his golf bag to figure out what club he's going to hit into this par 3. And I am. It was so intimidating. It was so nerve-wracking that, and I'm a decent enough golfer. Like, I don't hit a million bad shots. I'm 90% sure I just hit a bladed little thing straight into the water. I was so
like,
nervous
great,
and
playing
scared
with this guy
because Jerry West is there,
of course.
right? And
he
so,
might not like you.
And there you go. And I'm thinking, maybe he hates Jim, and by association, he hates me. Maybe he loves Jim, but he doesn't want to say, like, I don't know where I stand with this man. I've been here for 5 minutes, and I don't know what's going on.
Did you remember the actual interview?
Yeah.
Like, if you were
because
thinking back,
because he's not the interview, but I remember having him on.
Okay,
because
so
he's
you don't
Jerry
remember
West.
if it was a contentious interview or anything like that?
They rarely were contentious. So I mean, there were a couple famous incidents aside, but
few.
there were. I wasn't worried about that. But again, because he's Jerry West, because he doesn't do a million of these things, getting him was kind of a big deal. So we play a couple of holes, and I'm still really nervous because he's just not engaging. He's just not. And Elk starts hitting him with questions about basketball, about the Lakers, about sports, about all of this other stuff. And every time he's getting ready to tell a story, he kind of not looks at me, but you can tell he's got his foot on the brake because I'm, air quote, a member of the media.
Well, you're a producer of a big-time show.
And Elk says, "Jerry, Trav's cool. We're good here." And at that moment, you could almost feel him go, "Oh, okay." And everything opened up at that point. And all of a sudden, and this was like on the 4th or 5th hole, and I'm like, this is going to be amazing. Then it became very warm, very welcoming, very exciting to have you in here. And then it got really good from there. But it was that thing you're talking about, that I'll do these things, I'll be polite, I'm going to do it, but I need to know what's going on here before it happens. And just his presence was absolutely unbelievable.
Do you remember any of the stories? I don't think you can actually probably tell most of them on the air, but do you remember any of the stories that he told?
Oh, yeah.
Are there ones that you can tell?
I can tell them in generalities without getting specific because, and I
like juicy stories.
You guys know how much I love to tell stories.
Yeah.
We were sitting, and this is another. We're gonna take some phone calls here coming up in a bit. There are these huge circular tables in the grill room at Bel Air Country Club where you sit around, you drink beers, you have a sandwich, you tell stories, you add up your score, and maybe you might play a little cards or whatever. He starts telling a story about a player. He stops, and he looks at me dead in the eyes. He says, "If you ever tell anybody this, that's it." And I, no problem. I've never told anybody the story ever.
Ever?
Ever.
Can we know in the break?
I've never told it. Well, I mean, now I got a lot of them, and I'm going to tell you as many of them as I can. We're going to take your phone calls coming up in just a little bit. Jerry West passed earlier today at the age of 86. We are celebrating his life as a player, as an executive, as a very complicated individual who has lived one of the great lives here in Los Angeles, and just with unbelievable grace and dignity. We'll continue to celebrate Jerry West when we come back. It's Travis Lee, 710 ESPN.
This is an announcement. All day today on the home of Lakers basketball, 710 ESPN. 10 ESPN.
Jerry West passed earlier today at the age of 86 years old. We are reacting to it all morning long. Obviously, we came on a little bit early today. We got you right up till 1 o'clock, and then Mason in Ireland. And Michael Thompson, you said, Greg, is going to be in all day as well?
Michael Thompson and Pepe Mantilla
Awesome.
will be in,
right.
and they know Jerry pretty well.
Absolutely. And the entire basketball world is responding to the death of Jerry West, including Michael Jordan.
Yeah, so from one genius to another genius in terms of basketball. So Michael Jordan says this: I'm so deeply saddened by the news this morning of Jerry's passing. He was truly a friend and a mentor, like an older brother to me. I valued his friendship and knowledge. I always wished I could have played against him as a competitor, but the more I came to know him, I wish I had been his teammate. I admired his basketball insights, and he and I shared many similarities to how we approached the game. He will be forever missed. My condolences to his wife, Karen, and his son's RIP logo.
That's really interesting. How many times have you heard Michael Jordan say that I saw the game the same way as that guy did? That is the highest of praise from MJ.
I can only think of one other person. It was Kobe.
Right.
That was the only other person that I think is even on the level with him. But, I was thinking about it also. Isn't it just kind of fitting that the day that Jerry West passes, he hated Boston so much.
He wouldn't wear green.
He would not wear green.
Yeah, that's right.
On the day of Game 3 of the NBA Finals with Boston in it. It's just a way to take a little bit of shine away from them at any chance that he had. I mean, is it kind of fitting?
Look, the Lakers
Dallas
have
to get
made a
in
lot
there
of
and help
news
take
this
away
week.
some
Yeah, the Lakers are doing. As you said
He's
earlier,
a Laker.
he is a Laker.
Absolutely.
Finding any way possible.
Let's try our first phone call of the day. We'll take your phone calls all day long. 877-710-ESPN, 877-710-3776. Ayaz in Duarte. You're up next, Ayaz. What's going on?
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Great.
So I just wanted to touch on Jerry West and how he was the architect of the Lakers in the Shaq Kobe era.
Sure.
So, I was born in 1998. So for me, I mainly associate Jerry West with that era of the Lakers basketball, with the three-peat from 2000 to 2002. But something interesting I saw this morning on Twitter was that in the same week in 1996, in July of 1996, he traded for Kobe's draft rights from Charlotte and acquired Shaq from Orlando. That might be the greatest week of any GM in NBA history, seriously.
Well, you acquired two of the great players of all time on the same team at virtually the same time. Yeah, that's a pretty good week as an executive.
And you traded Vlade Divac, too, which he was
He's an all-star.
He was an all-star. He was a huge player to trade.
He's probably the best player on the team at that point,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Do you remember how that all went down too? There was a good, I forget what piece it was, but it was basically how Shaq became a Laker. And this is, let's put the Kobe piece to the side for a quick second. Orlando was messing around with Shaq and thought money-wise they can figure this thing out. They didn't have to offer him the absolute max. Shaq's not going anywhere. He's expressed that he likes Orlando, this and that. You get Jerry West in a room with Shaquille O'Neal. You said something I thought was so interesting and is so true. There's certain people that if Jerry West calls you while he's an executive and you're an executive on the other side, don't do a
Hang
deal.
up.
Hang up. Don't even start the
Hey,
conversation.
I was thinking, no, you weren't.
you don't.
Click.
Don't even start the conversation or the dialogue. But to go on what that caller just said about the thing with Shaq is everybody knew Shaq was going to be the most dominant player in the NBA. To sign a player of that caliber and to pry him away from the Orlando Magic, it's a no-brainer. It just comes down to, are you able to get the other side to agree, yep, if I come to L.A., the marketing, the this, look at all the other centers that have been a part of the franchise, can I now become part of history? If I win a championship here, that part, and I'm not saying I'm not giving him credit for that, but of course Jerry West believed if I could get Shaquille O'Neal, that's a no-brainer.
So did the other 29 teams.
Here's a quote that he had. They were doing, and this is a quote from Jerry West. He said, Shaq, we just drafted a kid who's the best player in the draft. He's going to be the best player in the league one day. That to me is the quote of, I found this jewel in Kobe Bryant. People are not going to think Kobe's going to get drafted till a little bit later. I don't want Kobe to work out for anybody because I want to hide Kobe Bryant somewhere in the draft. You mentioned something about Vlade Divac, and I know that kind of sounds funny, like, oh, they only had to give up Vlade. Vlade was a very, very good NBA player.
A proven NBA player.
Proven player at that time.
Huge.
The whole thing.
Smoked cigarettes, but that's all different.
This is what made Jerry West Jerry West. What made Jerry West Jerry West is I can see something nobody else sees yet. Not I see Shaquille O'Neal that everybody notices. I could see something that nobody else can see, and it's a 17-year-old at a Lower Merion high school that nobody knows yet.
Well, isn't the story that in his workout he played against Michael Cooper?
Michael Cooper.
Who is one of the best defenders of all time, and he smoked him.
Well, that story goes that Kobe was kicking his ass, and Jerry pulls Cooper aside and says, "Hey, I need you to give him the business." He's like, "Dude, I am.
Right.
I can't stop him. I can't stay in front of him." And it's like, oh, okay.
Okay, I want that guy.
I want to go back to what you said, Slee, that, he tells Shaq, hey, I just drafted a guy that's going to be the best player in the league before too long. That is GM hyperbole. That's salesmanship. That is, quite frankly, BS if it comes out of almost anybody else's mouth. It's like, yeah, sure you did. If Jerry West tells you that, you're like, I think they might have drafted the best player in the draft. I think they might have drafted the guy that's going to be the best player in the league in 4 or 5 years. That if literally think of any other executive out there, like, yeah, sure you did. Sure,
yep. You got a 17-year-old that
13.
you worked out in a high school,
right? You're telling me that kid who took Brandy to the prom a couple of days ago is going to be the best player in the league soon enough? Oh, okay. He says it, you're like, yeah, he probably is.
He was playing with Anthony Hardaway at the time, too. And Penny Hardaway was an amazing player at the time, too. So it was Penny and Shaq.
Got to the NBA
and he
Finals.
Got him to move away from that to go play with Kobe.
Let's try another one here. Let's go to San Pedro. And Chris. Chris, you're on with Travis Lee. What's up, Chris?
Hey, guys. How are you? Obviously a tough day. 2 legends in a couple of weeks. First Bill Walton and now Jerry West. Everyone's going to talk about the Shaq, the Kobe's, drafting magic, but it's also the moves that went under the radar that had a profound impact on the Laker organization. Don't forget, back in '82, he traded a 2-time champion Norm Nixon to get an unproven Byron Scott.
Yep.
Don't forget that. You want to talk about the Euro movement in the NBA? Who do you think started it, replacing Kareem in '89 with Vlade Divac? He found Nick Van Exel in the second round out of Cincinnati. He found Derek Fisher in the second round.
I was going to say drafted Derek Fisher, traded for Rick Fox, I believe.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right.
And one more point I wanted to say about the coaches. We've talked about Pat Riley and how he took a chance on him. Don't forget, he took a chance on Hubie Brown. Nobody would touch Hubie Brown. He was 70-something. Hubie Brown, in West's third year with the Grizzlies, became Coach of the Year the same year that West got the Exec of the Year. He found people, and he believed in them, and he took chances on them. That's what made him special. And the one thing and I just want to point this out one more time, I'm really kind of sad that the Lakers and him were never able to really patch whatever differences and whatever issues there were between them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the time, guys, and have a good one.
Thanks, Chris. We're going to talk about that too. That's a part of his story. That's a part of the life of Jerry West, is his identity as a Laker, and the way that his relationship with the Lakers deteriorated later in life. I want to go back to what he said there about how he was willing to take risks, and I agree. Big risk, big reward, right? That's just 101. Is it really a risk if he's doing it? You know what I mean? Like, I know to us or to another executive, it looks like, hey, man, he found this Derek Fisher guy, or he found this, or he did that, or he made this trade instead of that one, or he drafted this guy instead of that guy. Okay. But when you're right, as often as he was, and big right, not just, oh, hey, we found a rotation guy late in the first, big right, Kobe Bryant right, Magic Johnson right, like this kind of stuff. Is that? I know to us it looks risky, but Al, is it risky if he's a genius? He doesn't need to say, I think, it's, I know that guy's going to turn into a great player.
Well, I think that's what makes, when we sit back and reflect on him, that's why when we say, hey, think of the greatest to ever do it in their sport, that's why he comes up. I think in the NBA, if I said the greatest executives in the history of the NBA, you're not getting – you're going to mention Jerry West. You're going to mention Pat Riley. You're going to mention maybe an R.C. Buford because of what he was able to do with the San Antonio Spurs. You're not going very far. Jerry Krause, if you want to say that. Like, you're not going very far. And what you said is it really that special? I think this kind of takes me back to the other side of things where when you list somebody's accolades and there's so many of them, you can't truly appreciate every single one.
A little bit of LeBron in that. Mm-hmm. There's just so many, and obviously for different reasons, but there's just so many things. Right. It's like okay, he's awesome.
How do you stop and appreciate something when somebody has? This is just if somebody has on their accolades Executive of the Year one time, I could actually stop and appreciate that more because there's nothing else on the sheet of paper. When you have somebody like Jerry West,
it gets lost.
It gets lost. Like the resume is just, it's kind of interesting. You just mentioned LeBron. We are watching somebody today where there is that every single day. Why is LeBron not getting back on defense? Maybe he's 39 years old. You stop appreciating all these other things that these people are doing.
And, you were saying how, if Jerry West does it, that means that it's going to be work. And you don't have to think about it. He knows it. And it's because he's a genius. He's one of the few geniuses that we have in this world. He's a basketball genius, and he knew things way ahead of anybody else does. He made the league what it is today with some of these great, fantastic franchises. But it's also why he's a complicated person. Every genius that you can list out has skeletons. Every genius that you can list out is not a perfect person because it's what makes them a genius is what makes them complicated. And I think that, would I want to be married to a genius? Would I want my dad to be a genius? No. I love you, Dad, but you're not a genius. But our world is a better place because geniuses are the way that they are. And, they're tortured because of it. And I think that is something to value.
They move the world forward. They think of new things. They see things way before everybody else sees them.
Differently.
And they see them differently. Yeah. And you know what else that's hard to do? It's hard to be around those people a lot of times because you know what you never hear about a genius? Oh, he's a super normal guy.
No, never.
Never. They don't go together. They don't go like this, Al. They're like this,
because
right?
It's so hard for them to know what's going on in their brain, to articulate what's happening in their brain.
And yes, and if you are a genius, to try to explain to a normie, this is what I'm seeing and doing and understand. It's like, I if you don't get it, I can't do it for you. Just because I just saw the movie a couple of nights ago, my kids had never seen it. We watched Good Will Hunting again the other day, and Matt Damon's character says to those other math geniuses, do you know how easy this is for me? That you can't understand this frustrates me. Do you know how easy this is for me? And I think that's kind of what you were dealing with. And not that, but it was just, guys.
Can't relate.
I see this on a different plane. I'm looking at the Matrix after it's slowed down for Neo. It's not moving fast for me. I see this differently than you do.
People like me and you and Al and everybody here, because we see it so different, we actually frustrate those people because you're not seeing you're not seeing what I'm seeing. And so to them, you're like, oh, this is, you guys, you're just not getting, you're stupid in some sense. Like, how do you not? We don't understand it, and we never can understand it.
All right, more of your phone calls coming up, 877-710-ESPN, 877-710-3776. Plus, I want to tell you the story about the time I made Jerry West laugh. I was very proud of myself. That's coming up next. It's Travis Lee, 710 ESPN.
710 ESPN.
Jerry West passed earlier today at the age of 86 years old. Al and I coming on a little early to celebrate the life of Jerry West. Greg Bergman, Corporate Greg, in here with us talking about it as well. And it's always so difficult because the emotions of all of this stuff kind of swirl together. Somebody that you admire and respect passes, and it's very sad, obviously. But then you kind of have a moment. It's like 86 years old is a nice long run, and to have lived the life that he lived, and to have had all the experiences that he had, and to have the success both personally and professionally is pretty darn remarkable when you look at it with all the things that he was able to do.
So I'm pretty jealous of you because Al, I think you're probably like me, and where I never actually got to meet Jerry West. And Travis, you were just telling stories about how on the golf course and we're sitting around a table with him, but you have something that I always like. You want to be able to meet those certain people and before they pass, and actually get to sit down and have stories with them and hear what they're thinking. And you have so many of them.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky because I worked on a radio show that was wildly popular. And
that got anybody they wanted.
We got anybody we wanted. And then I became friends with a lot of people that came through the show. And one of the people that I became friends with was the golfer Steve Elkington. And when he would come through L.A., he would invite me to come play golf with him. And more often than not, it was at Bel Air Country Club where Jerry West was a member. And I told the story earlier about, meeting him for the first time. So fast forward about 2 hours into that same day. All right, we're on the 7th hole, and the 7th hole at Bel Air Country Club. And the reason I'm telling you this is because it matters to the story. You tee off on an elevated tee box.
I love those.
And you drive down into this little valley, and then your second shot is back up to an elevated green. So it's kind of like, think of it like a U shape where you hit from high down to low, and then you hit from low up to, like a half. That's actually a perfect description, is a half pipe. So we're playing in the group. And I drive the ball down the left side of the fairway. Hit pretty good. I'm in a good spot. Jerry West drives his ball kind of in the center of the fairway to the right of me. We go down there, and we're, 15, 16 yards apart from each other. And I hit my iron shot up the hill. Decent shot, kind of towards the middle of the green, maybe
Not
a little bit
anymore.
left. No, I've settled in a little bit at this point. So I'm a little bit to the left of the middle. Jerry hits his shot a little bit left of the middle. They're on very similar line. And again, it's because it's an elevated game. You can't see the balls, right? You hit them up there, and then you go up there, and okay, mine's left, yours is right, yours is a little short, mine's a little whatever. Off the club, they looked really similar. So we get up to the green, and there's two balls within 3 feet of each other, okay? As we're walking up to the green, I say, Jerry, I think those are ours. I said, what ball are you playing? Which is, golf speak for what number is on your ball? What brand is on the ball?
Titleist 1.
Exactly. So he goes, I'm playing a Titleist 2. I said, okay, so am I. And he goes, ugh. Because he's grinding it out. He's grinding like it's a qualifier for the U.S. Open. Like he cares deeply at this point. We go up, and he goes, mine was a little bit left of yours, so I'm going to take this one. That's you. Cool. So he picks up that one, marks it. I pick up the other one, mark it, and I'm wiping the mud off the ball. It's Titleist 2. I turn the ball over, and in the middle of the ball on the side is 44.
That's not your ball, Trav.
And I'm like, Jerry, I think you might have mine. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, this has 44 stamped in the side of the ball. He goes, oh, I forgot that they put I told him not to do that. But yeah, okay, that's mine. And he goes, hand it back. I'm like, not a chance. I said, this is mine.
Ball.
This is coming with me.
You had the guts to say that to him.
I'd settled in, Greg. I was feeling pretty good at this point. And he smiles at me and he laughs. He goes, okay, yeah, I get it. So I put the ball, I didn't play. I stuck it in my bag. Like, that's it. Fast forward to the end of the round. We're in the locker room. We're changing our shoes and all that kind of stuff. And I said to Elk, I'm like, hey, man, I don't know if this is cool or not. Do you think I can ask him to autograph this ball? And he goes, if you don't, I'm going to. And I'm like, all right. So I said, hey, Jerry, would you mind? And he Jerry West on that very same golf ball that we played with, the number 44 stand. I gave it to my dad as a Christmas gift because that was his guy. He still has it hanging in his little office at home. But I got to laugh at Jerry West like, hell no, you're not getting this thing back. This thing is mine.
Can you get your dad to take a picture of that?
Yeah,
that ball?
I'll text my mom right now.
Yeah,
she'll do it.
And then put it out on Twitter. I really want to see that.
Oh, done.
That's amazing.
I will have that. I'll have it by the end of next hour.
I just want to see it myself if you don't want to put it out.
All right, let's do a quick one. Let's go to Simi Valley and Greg. Greg, you're on with Travis Lee and Corporate Greg. What's up?
Hi, Travis and Lee. I was the luckiest Laker fan because I started watching Lakers in 71, 72 when they won their first championship. I watched the games on Channel 9, so they had the purple uniforms. Didn't know the Lakers had gold uniforms until they played in the finals, and they were on national TV. Anyway, the thing about Jerry West is he was the most inspiring athlete ever that I've seen. I watched more than 50 years of sports. Reason why is the man played with his hair on fire. There was no quit in that guy. There was no three-point line back then. So you'd hear the Lakers would be down in the middle of that 33-game winning streak. They'd be down by like maybe 6 points. So you need basically, hit three two-point shots to tie the game. And you'd always have in the last minute of the game, you'd hear Chick Hearn saying, "Okay, whoever the offensive player is, West is guarding so-and-so. West steals the ball." And he's sure enough clutch. That was the nickname that he so deservedly had because he would just steal the ball when he needed it most. The guy was clutch from outside. He was athletic. He should have dunked. I think he was too modest to dunk the ball, but he could have. He was such a great athlete. And you mentioned the thing about Michael Jordan. I hadn't seen anybody bank the basketball on a long, 15-plus foot shot. But Jerry West, Gail Goodrich, they used to do that all the time. The guy was amazing. He just was an inspiration for anybody who thought about giving up, and a tremendous loss. But talking about his value as a GM and everything, it really kind of came from his crazy drive as an athlete and as a competitor on the court.
Appreciate you calling in. Yeah, there's something about. We all talked about this. We never got to experience Jerry West as a player. We didn't. So, but how do you know Jerry West as a player? This is how I know him. I know him as somebody that couldn't beat the Boston Celtics, that lost how many different times in the NBA Finals. If you go back to the Lakers and just result by year, he played from 1960 to 1974. Lost in the Western Divisional Finals, lost in the finals, lost in the finals, lost in the Western Divisional Finals, lost in the finals, lost in the finals, lost in the Western Division semifinals, lost in the finals, lost in the finals, lost in the finals. Keeps going until he finally got one in 71-72.
Against the Knicks.
By the way, the next year, lost in the finals again. And the reason why I mention that is because here's somebody that, let's put him in the state that we described. This guy's a genius. There's certain people within their craft of what they do. They're the greatest at what they do. This guy kept failing and kept failing and kept failing and kept failing. I mean, that's crazy and we all kind of know the history of that. But the reason why I bring that up is I wonder how much from an executive perspective made him what he is based upon all that losing as a player.
We're going to continue to talk about all of this as we celebrate the life of Jerry West here on 710 ESPN.
Right now on 710, we're taking off with 9 hours of live and local LA sports talk.
The home of the 9-hour LA Sports Mega Block.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
We call it the LAX, LA Sports Mega Block. Of course, powered every day by LAX, Los Angeles International Airport, where change arrives daily. Let's get to it. Time to get in the air. We're taking off, LA.
You have clearance, Clarence.
Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Travis and Sliwa has clearance right now.
So a little bit of a different show today, obviously, with the passing of Jerry West. We will talk about the Dodgers. We'll talk about some other things along the way because there are some other things going on in and around the sports world. But obviously, we've been on the air for about an hour so far this morning. We came on a little early, talking about the incredible life and career of Jerry West, who passed earlier today at the age of 86 years old. And, you know, we talked about this not that long ago, but for maybe those people that are just joining us right now, it really is difficult to decide where to start because there are so many different places that you could talk about Jerry West and it would be right. You want to talk about Jerry West, the player? Great. He's one of the greatest players of all time. He still has a bunch of NBA records that are there. You want to talk about his impact in the league as the logo? Sure. Great place to start. You want to talk about maybe the greatest NBA executive ever? Yeah, he's that too. You want to talk about somebody who was associated with a bunch of different teams and had a complicated ending to his relationship with the Lakers? Yeah, that's a part of it too. There are just so many different facets to the life of Jerry West.
Individual players, we could sit here and spend an hour talking about, so how did he know or how did he realize that Kobe Bryant was going to be the player that he was? We could spend an hour talking about his impact for other franchises. We could spend an hour talking about which era of Jerry West are you a part of? Are you a part of the Jerry West era as a player? Are you a part of the Jerry West play or the Jerry West executive in the 80s?
Sure.
The Jerry West era in the 90s? There are a lot of different chapters to him. And then also a complicated life that we don't talk about because we end up kind of leaning more towards what he was as a player and what he represented in the league.
He was so vital to creating the Laker identity here in Los Angeles. And not to go too far back. This predates me, as old as I am. The Los Angeles did not have a lot of pro sports prior to 1960 or so. I'm rounding it off. Jerry West showed up right about that same time, about the same time that Vin Scully and the Dodgers showed up here. And all of a sudden, L.A. became not just that place out there where they make movies. It's on the other side of the country. Everything that's happening is in the East Coast and in the Midwest. And yeah, California's way out there. Nobody lives in it. Well, now all of a sudden, you got the Dodgers and Vin Scully describing it to a group of people that fell in love with the Dodgers. You've got Jerry West playing for the Lakers when they come from Minneapolis, and people are falling in love with the Lakers because they got this guy that's just absolutely unbelievable. And when you have that, those first couple of people, they matter a great deal. They matter a great deal of how they present themselves, of whether they win or not, whether they're really good or not, whether they do it. And there are people that are like my mom and dad's age that are old enough to remember that. Then there's somebody like me, who's the offspring of boomers, that remembers him almost exclusively as an executive, and not just he put Showtime together, which might be one of the great eras in NBA history. Right? They went to the finals 9 times in the 1980s. It's just nutso, right? He also put together another era of Laker basketball that developed 5 more championships. He went to Golden State and thrived. He went to Memphis and thrived. He went to the LA Clippers and thrived. And depending on how old you are and which part of the Jerry West story that you enter from kind of informs how it goes. And you are about 10 years younger than I am. So yours is the era right after Showtime. And Em, I'm curious about you, who, you're not even 30 yet, and his playing career predates me. Mm-hmm. When you heard the name, when you would see Jerry West's face, what was the first thing that pops into your head?
So I think about the logo, because honestly, for a long time, it's a trivia question. Who is the logo of the NBA? And so I think, okay, who is it? And it's Jerry West. And, I didn't really grow up watching basketball. It wasn't really something that we did in my household. I wasn't really an NBA fan until I got to college. I was watching the LeBron and the Cavaliers. And obviously when they, people talk about stuff, the Cavaliers, Warriors, people talk about the big people in the creation of the NBA. They talk about Jerry West. And honestly, I didn't really, and, maybe this is my fault, but it's just not something come across my radar. I didn't really know much about him until Winning Time. And
really? That's fascinating.
And I, learned about him, and I know, I knew to take it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
It is a dramatization of somebody. And so I knew that it wasn't truly who Jerry West was. But to see that guy, one, is the genius that he is as impactful to creating that team as he was, but also complicated and hard to get to know. So that episode where they kind of go back into Jerry's history, his, losing with the so many times in the finals and, winning the finals and, how he won the MVP as a losing team. So it's interesting to me that I gained my knowledge of that through that. Then I read Jeff Pearlman's book and got to know him a lot more there. So it's in the past couple of years that I gotten to know him.
Slee, you enter right after Showtime, right? The Anthony Peeler, Nick Van Exel, and then right before the next great era of Laker basketball.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. You said something a little bit earlier that, and I it's not that I never thought this, but if I told you obviously the Los Angeles Lakers brand is as important to LA as any brand, period. I don't care what it is, but the Lakers brand is as important to LA as any brand that exists in Los Angeles.
For sure.
But it goes much further than just LA. When you said the most important Lakers ever, period. Like if I told you most important Lakers,
God, that's a good way to put it.
If I told you most important Lakers and you said,
there's only one person you can put ahead of him.
If you said, well, Kobe was so important. Yeah, he was. Do you know how Kobe got here?
There's only one person.
Jerry West.
Yeah.
Dr. Jerry Buss is the only
one
that you would say. And that's fascinating to hear it that way because we think of players. Initially, you think of players, or you think of coaches. You think of Phil Jackson, you think of Pat Riley, you think of these guys. For him to have that many eras associated with the Lakers, and not just associated with them, not just showing up to work and grabbing a check, really kind of influencing and shaping a lot of people's lives of being a sports fan. Like it's funny because I think for me, and you talked about the era that I became a Laker fan, I'm basically right after the Showtime era is done. I'm starting to watch the Lakers when it's Magic is still there, but he's at the tail end of his career, and there's Vlade and Eldon Campbell and Sam Perkins and all these other guys.
Sure.
I don't know what the hell's going on, right? I'm just kind of figuring this out as I go. But the impact that had on me at that age, big reason why I sit here today is because, I was a Laker fan. I wanted to pursue covering the Los Angeles Lakers. And I'm sure there's people, whether you're in the industry or you're not, that fandom had an effect at you at some point in your life. For you, it might have been in the Showtime era.
Yeah.
For somebody else, a caller a little bit earlier, it was, Jerry West playing as a Los Angeles Laker. For somebody else, it was the day Kobe Bryant was drafted. That
Showtime.
I'm now a fan
of. Or I should say, a Winning Time.
Winning Time.
Yeah.
It could be that, like Emily just mentioned. So it's very unique to have somebody that involved in this many eras and to have that much impact.
And with such a legacy brand like the Lakers are. The Lakers have issued a statement on the passing of Jerry West, which reads, Jerry West is forever a basketball icon. He brought Lakers fans their first championship in Los Angeles in 1972 and was integral to another 6 titles during his time with us. Our thoughts are with the West family and the many NBA fans who honor his legacy. Jerry West will always be a Lakers legend. Very well said. And it's unique. Like there are so few. There are basketball stars, right? There are guys that have been great players. Not a lot that have been better than Jerry West, but there are great players. There are people that have made their mark in this league as an executive. There are people that have made their mark in the league when it comes to marketing and growing the game. There are people that have made it as this, that, or the other thing. But this dude is one of one that he did all of those. And not just I dabbled. I was a GM for a few years. No, he was maybe the best basketball executive to ever live. Hey, I was a player. No. You're a Hall of Fame player. Yeah, I played a little in college. No, you went to the Final Four.
14-time NBA All-Star.
What was it? Yes, 14-time NBA All-Star and a 12-time All-NBA performer.
And every year he was eligible to be an All-Star, he was an All-Star.
You're the only player to lose in the finals and be the NBA Finals MVP.
It is all of this. And there are guys that Pat Riley was one of the great NBA executives of all time.
Yeah.
He's one of the great NBA coaches of all time.
Yep.
He was a player, played in the league. He was not a special player.
Right.
Jerry West is one of the greatest players of all time. And by the way, he wasn't quite. They didn't have the accolades as a coach that Jerry West or that Pat Riley had, but he was a successful coach. And then he became the greatest executive of all time. And looking at when the NBA Finals are being played tonight in Dallas,
sure.
Look at Luka Doncic's chest. That little red, white, and blue logo, that's Jerry West. Okay? It is a brand that, I don't know, maybe it's not everywhere in the world, but it's damn near everywhere in the world. You go into China somewhere, and
sure.
they know what that is.
Yep.
They might not know it's Jerry West, but they know that logo. And the NBA decided, who we want to choose to be the person, be the silhouette that kind of signifies and identifies our league. Let's pick Jerry West. It's crazy.
It's the ultimate compliment.
Yes.
We were talking about this during the break, and Greg was mentioning it. There's two names you could associate with Jerry West: the logo and Mr. Clutch. Can
Pretty
you
good
think
names.
of any other association that's better in the world of sports? By the way, it doesn't have to be the world of sports, but in sports, that sport has a silhouette, like you mentioned, a logo after you. And oh, by the way, if you want to be associated with a couple different terms in the world of sports, you want champion, think of them.
Smart.
How about Mr. Clutch? How about when everything is on the line, that's what your
it's pretty good.
That's
I don't know if he won the gold medal in basketball too. And way back when that was a very, very big deal.
How far
not that
down
it's
the
not
list.
now, but it was maybe a bigger deal
and
back then.
It's interesting. Yeah, he's one of 3 players to win an NBA Finals MVP, NCAA tournament most outstanding player, and an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
He's just won everywhere he's been. He has lost a lot, but any true competitor has to do that.
It's funny. So I want to talk about that. We're going to take some of your phone calls when we come back. 877-710-ESPN. But what you just mentioned, that he only won one NBA title, right?
Yep. As a player.
And Slee, as a player, you went through it, Slee, where he lost in the finals, and the Celtics he just could not get past the Celtics. When he finally did win the NBA championship, it was against the Knicks. You do not think of anything other than winning when you think of him. Whereas with other players who have won a lot more as a player, we associate losing with. Or at least, why didn't you win more? And maybe that's a sign of the times, but more than anything else, when you think of Jerry West, you think of incredible intelligence and acumen and winning, even though as a player, his teams would often come up just a hair short. We'll do that, plus a lot of your phone calls. 877-710-ESPN. It's Travis Lee celebrating the life of Jerry West on 710 ESPN.
Basketball, 710 ESPN.
Jerry West earlier today passed at the age of 86. We have talked quite a bit about him so far. We'll continue to do it. We'll continue to take your phone calls. And Al, you know me pretty well. I love to tell stories. I've told a couple already. I'm going to tell them again because they're some of my favorite ones to tell. My dad has sent me a couple of pictures of the golf ball story that I told
44.
earlier today. Did I show you the 44?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'll post that on Twitter. I'll tell the story again. But I think for a lot of people, and especially a lot of Laker fans now, that Kobe Bryant is emblematic of the most modern era of Laker greatness. That Kobe's 5 championships, Kobe did it over 2 distinct and separate eras. There was the era with Shaquille O'Neal, and there was the era with Pau Gasol. And I think when you're just talking about great Lakers of all time, there's Kobe, there's Magic, there's Jerry West, there's Kareem. It's a very select group. But Kobe's not here, Slee, without Jerry West. Mm-hmm. And that he was able to identify it like he was at the time when this was before. Kobe was the high school kid. Kobe was the guy that grew up in Italy, who his dad played for the Lakers a million years ago. But Jerry West saw something very different.
So it's fascinating for those, and it's easy to forget the story, but you go back to, I think, one of the more critical times in Lakers history, right? You're in the mid-'90s. You're trying to figure out what's the Lakers. They've created this thing already where it's, hey, you got to win championships or it's nothing. It started in Minneapolis. Obviously, Jerry West kind of took the reins once he came here, the Showtime era, 5 championships in 9 years. And they're stuck in this, what the hell do we do from here? And the story of how Kobe Bryant became a Los Angeles Laker, it's completely Jerry West. I think some people forget. They forget that Lakers didn't have a draft pick until the late 20s, mid-20s, something along those lines. They were trying to free up salary space on their roster to try to get Shaquille O'Neal. And for him to kind of juggle and maneuver I'm going to pray that nobody knows who the hell Kobe Bryant is. I saw him in a private workout, and once I saw him in a private workout, I wanted to make sure that he wasn't working out for anybody else. I remember this story. Remember there's a player back in the day, Kerry Kittles.
Sure.
The New Jersey Nets had the number 8 pick in the draft, and there was concern that the Lakers had that by trading Vlade Divac, I think what people forget, they traded Vlade Divac. The idea and the concept was it was going to free them space. Charlotte needed a center, so now they got the center that they need, but now they're going to have also salary cap space to go get Shaquille O'Neal. Hey, can you do me a favor while we make that trade? Can you make sure to give us the number 13 pick as well? That he flipped, I'm going to get Shaq because now I got rid of Vlade. I'm going to now have enough salary cap space for that. I'm going to try to tell everybody or pretend that Kobe Bryant doesn't even exist in the draft. Let me grab that number 13 pick from you as well. And all the Lakers were waiting to do and all Jerry West was looking to do was, if we can get past the Nets at number 8, I think we're going to get him.
Calipari is the only other one that really wanted Kobe.
They get past number 8. Charlotte ends up drafting him, and then obviously the trade goes down. But just, again, one of the greatest to ever play the game was selected at number 13, and the Lakers didn't even have that pick.
And it's one of the stories that Jerry West pulled off, and there are many, many more. Joining right now by a friend of the show, stationed here. She's a TV star now as well, and somebody that I'm sure has a million Jerry West stories of her own, Ramona Shelburne, joining us right now. Momo, appreciate you coming on with us this morning. Just the first thing you think of when you think of Jerry West is what?
Oh, I think passionate, like intense. That's the word. I mean, I've seen him. He was at games this year, right? So I would always see him walking around, and I knew he had some health stuff. Like I think he had some heart issues and stuff. He looked like he'd lost some weight and stuff. But he always was dressed immaculately. Always wore a suit. Always was like standing in the front row or in the tunnel because he's watching the game so closely and living and breathing on every single play and so intense. Like just so if you watch the game, if watching Jerry West during game was like watching a game itself, right? the guy was so intense about basketball, and like I just loved going up to him pregame and being like, "Hey Jerry, you heard about?" I mean, I remember you heard about this guy Victor Wembanyama? What do you think of him? And he's like, "Well, I was watching his game the other day." Like you could name any college player in America or international draft prospect or any NBA player, and he had an opinion on them. And it wasn't just, some dumb opinion. It was like he had probably watched 4 of their games and studied the tape and knew who they were, and he had some insight. And the opinion was never flowery or some honest.
We're breaking up a little bit with Ramona right there. See if we can reconnect with her real quick. But I think it's really interesting that the first word she said is passionate, and I think that kind of encapsulates it encapsulates his style as a player.
Yeah,
it encapsulates his acumen as an executive, and certainly the way that he would just watch the games. We got you back, Momo?
I think so.
Yeah, we got
you. Just driving from Dallas Airport here. So I think, the other thing too, Travis, is, and I don't know if people really fully appreciate this, but he, like every superstar in the NBA for the last 30 years considers Jerry West a friend. like people just went up to him and started talking to him because I think he was so honest about what it's like to be a superstar and the sort of burdens of fame and chasing greatness. Like, he related to people like LeBron James and Michael Jordan and Kevin Durant and like everybody, like those kind of players, they gravitated towards him. I remember after Kobe passed away, Michael gave that incredible eulogy at his funeral, right? Remember, we all were like, wow, I did not know they were that close. And I called Jerry West, and I knew Jerry knew Kobe really well, but I also knew Jerry had dinner with Michael the night before the celebration of life, right? Like I had heard they'd been out together, and I was like, Jerry, how is Jerry friends with Michael Jordan, right? Like I didn't understand that connection, and Jerry said something to me like, I'm friends with a lot of people you don't realize, right? and it was sort of like a Jerry way of saying it, but he just talked like he and Michael have been really close, and you see Michael had a great outpouring of support for him today, and I feel like people trusted Jerry West. They confided in him. They knew he could understand, and if whether you read his book or you didn't read his book, like he discusses a lot of his own demons and his own insecurities, his own feelings about his life, but also like chasing greatness, the pain of losing, the agony of those years where they were so close, right? He like those, when you're at that level, when you're at LeBron James's level or Jerry West level or Michael Jordan's level, there's very few people in the world who understand you. And the fact that so many stars of that ilk, Jerry West is a friend, like a confidant, mentor, friend, that's really special. And I think when somebody tweeted this, I can't remember who it was, but like he really is a foundational piece of the NBA for the past 6 years.
Ramona Shelburne taking some time here to join us here on the Travis and Sliwa Show. Ramona, it's interesting. I can only imagine, some of the personal stories you might have with Jerry, and unfortunately, sometimes days like this, you're trying so hard to remember all those great stories. But the beauty is that we're going to get a lot of great stories that come out because of it. You said something about all the losing that he had as a player. And I say losing, just getting past the Boston Celtics. Obviously, his career was incredible. That's why he's the logo. That's why he's nicknamed Mr. Clutch. But how much do you think, and I'm just curious your thoughts on this, all the success that he had as an executive, how much do you think a lot of that was driven by his accomplishments as a player, or maybe felt, I got to win more and I can't do it anymore as a player. I'm going to try to apply that from an executive perspective.
I don't think he wanted to go into that. Like, I actually think, as much as we can quibble with how he's portrayed in Winning Time, there was a lot of stuff in there I didn't like. I thought there was a lot of it that was kind of, caricature of him, right? I mean, he certainly had a temper, and he certainly had some demons, and he certainly had, a lot of that stuff. But it was kind of one note, right, where he had a lot more depth. But the one thing I thought they really got right was that he did not want to coach. Like, he didn't want to be the GM. He just kind of wanted to stay in basketball. But I don't think he ever really wanted to do that. He just kind of embraced the role. I mean, that's why he wasn't the coach. Remember, in that season, they sort of had, Jerry West initially and named him the coach when he was like, all right, I guess I'll do it. But like those great players where coaching is, it's not that he wouldn't have been a great coach. It's just that he demands perfection of himself, and he demanded perfection from his teams. That I think it would have been way too stressful for him. I mean, if you saw him and when he was the general manager of the Lakers in all those years, he could hardly watch the game. I mean, he would watch, but he was just pacing and intense, and it was just so like I said, watching Jerry during a game is a game in and of itself. It's like watching a whole other game, right? And so I think I don't even know that he was like wanted all that power and fame. I don't think that's what he was after. I think it was just staying in the game of basketball. And we haven't even talked about his personal story, right? I mean, just growing up in West Virginia and the family history and trauma there, and then kind of using that as a means to go become the person he did, right? As an inspiration for that. Like, I'm not going to be this, and but there's a lot there. I should probably leave it to him to tell it best in his book, right? He really does. But that's the thing about Jerry is that like sort of fell into greatness, right? Even though he couldn't help but embrace everybody else who fell into that or wanted that or chased that. And he was so like, the word that keeps coming into my head is humble, but it's not the right word. It's more that he didn't seek all this. He just happened to be great because he couldn't live any other way.
Yeah, Ramon, it's funny, and I'll tell you a very quick story because I'm just curious if you had a similar experience to this. That I only met him once, and I got to play a round of golf with him at Bel Air Country Club where he used to spend a lot of time. And at first, because he knew that I was a member of the media, he was a little reluctant to engage at all. And then once the person that had brokered the meeting between the two of us kind of signed off on me as, hey, we're just here to play golf and have a good time, he really kind of opened up and was an incredible storyteller and was a lot of fun to be around. But you mentioned the word passionate earlier, and just when I first met him, the intensity that just radiated off of him as a human being was palpable. And then you could tell that once he became a little bit more comfortable with me just being in his orbit for half a second, that the incredible intellect and insight and just personality, it just comes racing through once you get through that initial a moment of his guard is up.
Yeah. You know what I loved about him too is that he always called you. It's funny to me that you said he was wary of talking to you because you were in the media, because I actually think he was very accessible. Like, that was one of the things as a young reporter, even when I wasn't at ESPN, I was just at the Daily News, and I didn't have any kind of profile. I was just barely starting out in the industry, and I was very nervous to call him. I got his number, I had to call him for something, and I don't think we even knew each other, but I just left my name and number on his voicemail, and he called me right back. Hi, Ramona, Jerry West. Like it just, like, oh, okay. Oh my God, I'm talking to Jerry West, right? Like, it was one of those. And then literally every time I called him, he called me back. Like, it wasn't like, we live in this era where so many people play games and they lie to you, or they don't want to tell you the truth, or they spin it or whatever. Jerry told you the truth. If anything, he was real off the cuff. Like, I mean, I'm sure there will be a lot of coaches or people he's worked with that will tell you this story, but like, I mean, he would be like with the Warriors, and you'd think like that team was terrible, because Jerry Hose is like, well, this guy can't do that. This guy, I mean, this is the dynastic Warriors with Kevin Durant, right? Like, but I mean, he was always the hardest on himself, and the hardest on his own teams. Like, but that's why he was great, because he always just saw any little area they could get better. He always saw, and he was like brutally honest about himself and the team, and things he got right, things he got wrong. I don't ever remember him gloating about things that, yep, I'm the guy who drafted Kobe. I don't ever remember him gloating. Like there's so many things he could have done that for. I think, we talk about him as the logo. I think he was almost embarrassed by that fame or that title. He should be the logo, but I think there was a sort of self-consciousness about that because there was not a self-importance to him. He still had that West Virginia thing, and I know when people would build their stories of like Jerry West yelling at people. Yes, he did yell at people. I have been yelled at by Jerry West, but it was never personal. You know what I mean? It was always like something about a story I did or some take I had or whatever. And I actually kind of appreciated it. I was like, all right, thanks for telling me what you think and not just talking about it behind my back. Right? Like it was just a straight shooter. And if anything, almost like too self-effacing, too critical of himself sometimes in his teams. But that's why they won. You know what I mean? Because he was like that. He was so honest about every single thing.
Ramona, I know you're in Dallas for the NBA Finals tonight. Just curious, and it might be just too early. Any word if they're going to do something, anything to honor Jerry West tonight? Have you heard of anything?
Oh, I'm sure they will. I mean, Adam Silver put out a beautiful statement a minute ago, and obviously the Celtics are one of the founding teams of the NBA, one of the legacy teams. But everyone here is gonna do something. I know a lot of the players. I mean, these are actually two fairly young teams. If you think about it, there's not a LeBron here. There's not somebody of that ilk who can really speak on to him. But there's certainly players who could be of that ilk one day, right? And Luka Doncic and Kyrie. It wouldn't surprise me if Jerry West reached out to. But I'm sure they'll do something at the game. This is a pretty big moment in the NBA. I mean, I think if you look at the sort of biggest faces in NBA history, I mean, it's probably Bill Russell, right? When he passed away, it's basically at that level.
Ramona is in Dallas to cover the NBA Finals. Ramona, appreciate you jumping off a plane and coming on with us and sharing your thoughts on Jerry West. Appreciate it.
You got it, boys.
Thanks, Ramona.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question, Al. I'm sure that they'll have something ready.
Yeah.
They got very talented people working very hard to get something ready
Whatever
for
the plan
tonight.
was, they'll be adjusting
New
that
plan.
tonight. Yeah.
New plan for sure. She mentioned Adam Silver. We'll hear what he had to say about Jerry West coming up in just a little bit. But coming up next, your phone calls, your memories on the life of Jerry West, who passed earlier today at 86 years old. You're listening to Travis Lee on 710 ESPN. All right, next gen. You got to have this number, right? You never know what's coming up. You never know when you're going to have a problem. I want to tell you a quick story. I had a water heater issue in my house, and I called Next Gen, 833-3-NEXGEN. Call right back. Person out to the house. The guy was informed. He was courteous. He was absolutely an all-star and walked me through every single step of the process. That this is what you need in a time where something's going on in your plumbing, something breaks in your air conditioning. NextGen has you covered in all of this stuff. Heating, air conditioning, plumbing. NextGen's the number you need to call. 833-NEXGEN. And right now, you can also get a little special action right now. $88 drain cleaning. That's an $88 drain cleaning. And they're going to throw in a free plumbing camera inspection as well. So if you've got a plumbing issue, if you've got an air conditioning issue, if you've got a heating issue, NextGen's the place to call. 833-3-NEXGEN. 833-3-NEXTGEN. Or of course, you can go online at nextgenairandplumbing.com.
Hey, it's me, Sliwa. ESPN.
So the NBA world is reacting, obviously, to the passing of Jerry West earlier today, including Adam Silver, who is the current commissioner of the league, Steve Ballmer, another team, the owner that Jerry West worked for, and Ramona mentioned a second ago about what Adam Silver had to say.
Yes, this is Adam Silver's statement that he released earlier today. He says, Jerry West was a basketball genius and a defining figure in our league for more than 60 years. He distinguished himself not only as an NBA champion and an all-star in all 14 of his playing seasons, but also as a consummate competitor who embraced the biggest moments. He was the league's first finals MVP. He was the league's first finals MVP and made rising to the occasion his signature quality, earning him the nickname Mr. Clutch. Jerry's 4 decades at the Lakers also included a successful stint as a head coach and a remarkable run in the front office that cemented his reputation as one of the greatest executives in sports history. He helped build 8 championship teams during his tenure in the NBA, a legacy of achievement that mirrors his on-court excellence, and he will be enshrined this October into the Naismith Hall of Fame as a contributor, becoming the first person ever inducted as both a player and a contributor. I valued his friendship, Adam Silver. I valued his friendship with Jerry and the knowledge he shared with me over many years about basketball and life. On behalf of the NBA, we send our deepest condolences to Jerry's wife, Karen, his family, and his many friends in the NBA community.
The part that jumped out at me, other than that's incredibly nice and kind and accurate, is that he's one of the great executives in sports history, not in NBA history, in sports history. How this transcends just him making some good trades in the league. He was as good at this as anybody that's ever done it in any sport.
Yeah, listen, it's tough to argue every time we talk about, and maybe it's different for us because a Laker conversation is common and it's often, and we're looking at today and we're saying, well, why can't they figure this out? That executive did, or why can't they find that coach? We're also forgetting that these are literally the greatest to ever do it in not just their sport, in any sport.
Sure.
Right? There isn't why can't they just go find another Jerry West? Like that's
because there's been one.
It's the equivalent of saying from a player perspective, just go get another Michael Jordan.
It's a good idea.
Tell me if there's from a comp perspective, from an executive perspective, when we talk about the greatest that ever played the game, there's a very short list. And I love that this is not one of the greatest executives in NBA history. This is one of the greatest executives, period.
And he obviously first, second, last, everything in between. You think of Jerry West, you think of the Los Angeles Lakers, but he worked for other teams. He worked for the Golden State Warriors. He worked for the Memphis Grizzlies. And in fact, oddly, and I think this is something that we can talk about a little bit later on in the program, his death was announced this morning by the Los Angeles Clippers. They were the first people to put that out publicly, and their owner, Steve Ballmer, also weighed in.
And you know Steve Ballmer, he's a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve.
Indeed.
And that's what made him who he is. So this is his statement on Twitter. He says, this is a hard day. I'm honored to call Jerry a confidant, an advisor, and a friend. Connie, my wife, called him my basketball dad. He was absolutely my basketball sage, wise, loyal, and so much fun. If you were in his presence, you felt his competitiveness and his drive. He cared about everything and everyone. From the first day I met Jerry 7 years ago, he inspired me with his intellect, honesty, enthusiasm, and he never stopped. I spent a lot of time with him, some of my best times of my life. He always lent an ear, and he was always had a quip, and he always left me laughing. I will miss him. That's from Steve Ballmer.
That's great. And the impact, look, I don't know if this is as a father, as a son, or just as a human being, but what you want to do, in my opinion, is make your mark on a couple of people that can then make their mark on a couple of people, and that's what you try to do. Like, I think about the things that my dad set examples for and the way that he went about conducting his business, and I try to do the best that I can to do for others what he did for me. And I hope that my 3 kids get just a small percentage of what I was given. But you hear Jerry West do that. And it's for sports fans. It's for team owners.
Yep.
It's for so many different people. And it's not just that he could shoot. It's not just that he impacted their lives in such a positive way because he was so willing to give of himself, to give that genius that Em was talking about. He wanted to share it. He wanted to, whether it's Steve Ballmer, or Adam Silver, or the Buss family, or whoever it was, that this was somebody that was impactful to probably millions of people.
And
It's extraordinary.
Steve Ballmer is a genius. He is someone who has had
another
many mentors in his life and has many accomplishments in his life. But to look at Jerry West and honor him as someone who can give him advice, someone who can be a sage to him, is impressive when it's Steve Ballmer we're talking about.
You know what's so cool is Ramona was talking about how so many of today's best players would find a way to interact with Jerry West.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about how difficult it is. And I love what she said about LeBron and Jerry West can have a conversation together. Jerry West can say to LeBron, you know what? I know where you're coming from. Like, I see your perspective. How many people can LeBron James have a conversation with?
Count them on one hand.
Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. Like, go down the list of the best players in the league today that can relate to somebody that an 86-year-old can relate to them. Hey, I was in your shoes as well. You were?
I know what it feels like.
I know what it feels like. Yeah,
I lived it too.
That's special. That's special.
I lived it too, and this is how it worked out for me. And of those people we're talking about that it impacted, of course, countless Laker fans. Let's go to take a phone call here. Noah in Studio City. Noah, you're on with Travis Slade. What's up?
Hey, guys. First of all, thank you for having me on. I feel very, very privileged to get on a day like today. Accolades aside, I would just say this. When I was old enough to remember him as a player, I remember watching him on a little black and white TV. And remember Gail Goodrich was also a star on that team at the time. And my friends and I would go play out on a literally dirt court. And a lot of them wanted to be Gail Goodrich, but I wanted to be Jerry West because I just saw in him that drive, that Mr. Clutch vibe that he had. I drew a 44 on my little white T-shirt that I used to play in. And you know, Jerry then, he literally gave me a life as a Laker fan because not only him as a player, you know, then he gave us all and myself Magic Johnson and Kareem. And that would have been more than enough ever. I would think at that time, nothing's going to top this. And then Kobe Bryant for 20 years. So between him and Magic and Kobe, it's 4+ decades of incredible basketball that myself and every Laker fan was privileged to watch. And it doesn't surprise me that he saw what he saw in Kobe Bryant because what he saw was himself. He saw in Kobe that same drive, that same damn the torpedoes, I'm going to get this done at all costs. He just saw it in a more athletic body, and of course he recognized it, you know, that simple phrase, game recognized game, but he had another level, a sixth sense, obviously, to spot greatness and talent, and I think we just all are grateful. I got to meet him once. It was a privilege. And I just know that we're all grateful for what he gave us as basketball fans, and we'll be forever grateful.
Thanks for the call, Noah. Appreciate it. Well said. He talked a little bit right there, Noah did, about Kobe Bryant era here in Los Angeles, and the reason Kobe Bryant was a Laker was because of Jerry West. We'll get into that, and the reason he didn't come very close to becoming a Clipper is because of Jerry West. We'll do all of that coming up. It's Travis Lee, 710 ESPN. Rotolo Chevrolet, another great, right? 13 years Dealer of the Year is what Chevrolet or Rotolo Chevrolet has been able to do. And they do it by being all-stars in all the things that matter. Selection, of course. Pricing, of course. Customer service, better than anyone else. That's how you win Dealer of the Year 13 years in a row. Go find out for yourself. Think about this. How many times, and maybe it's a car, maybe it's something else, that you say, okay, we're going to hook you up with this. You're like, okay, sounds good. And then all of a sudden it's like, we didn't have this, or we need to move you into that. And oh, by the way, it's a little more than this. And you're like, I don't even know what's going on here. Never at Rotolo Chevrolet. Courteous, transparent, upfront. You're going to be thrilled with your experience at Rotolo Chevrolet. I know because I've bought cars from Rotolo myself. Right off the 210 freeway, Sierra Avenue exit, right there in Fontana. It is the sea of Chevy Silverados. You absolutely can't miss it. And if you're thinking Fontana's a little bit out of the way for you, go online, rotolochevy.com, ROTOLO, rotolochevy.com, and make sure you tell them that Travis sent. Jerry West passed earlier today at the age of 86 years old, and we've been talking about all of the remarkable moments in his life, and they transcend multiple decades, 6 decades of being a player, of being an executive, of being kind of like I believe that Steve Ballmer described him as his basketball sage, just this wise old man who had seen everything, been a part of everything, done everything there is to do in the league. And there aren't too many people like that. There are, like, Bill Walton passed not that long ago, and Bill Walton was talked about in incredibly glowing terms, rightfully so, about his unbelievable career as a college player, his unfortunately shortened NBA career because of injury, and his free spirit and his kindness and all of these things. And Jerry West has been talked about as an executive, as a player, as just about every single role you could have in basketball. He had all of these things over 60-plus years along the way, and it would be impossible to rank them all. But if you had to, isn't the Kobe Bryant acquisition at the top of the list? Isn't that number one, Al?
Yeah, this is, you and I didn't talk about this before, and right when I kind of heard where I thought you were going, I'm like, no, I got it.
Yeah,
it's Kobe.
Yeah, I think so.
It is, because I think and it's great to hear some of these stories and to hear other greats talk about just what Jerry West meant to the game, and obviously how important he was. And eventually we're going to have, I'm sure, Lakers put out a statement. There's going to be more other legends that say something. I think it's unique that it happened tonight or it happened today, so that tonight they can do something which will be center stage in the NBA Finals. And I say that because if the season was over, then you wouldn't have that opportunity to really shine a light on him. But what you just said about his greatest accomplishment, there can be just a documentary, and maybe there's one already out there, that is just on Jerry West acquiring Kobe Bryant and everything. And I know we know some of the stories and everything else, but if I told you the greatest Laker of all time, a lot of people would say it's Kobe Bryant.
Sure. Magic
Johnson says it's Kobe Bryant.
Sure.
Played 20 years in one jersey, represented one NBA franchise. In a way, for how obsessed Kobe was with winning, I'm sure probably a lot of that time was his time spent with Jerry West, that he was able to kind of learn a little bit from Jerry West.
So it's funny you say that, Al, because ESPN has a piece that after Kobe's death where Jerry West is talking about what you just described, which is this relationship, mentorship between, hey, look, you are about to become this player, this person, this legacy. It was called The Mamba and the Mongoose. Take a listen to this.
I really felt like that I was kind of a surrogate father to him. I did. We were going to watch over him and care for him just like a mother and father would do.
The knowledge of Jerry West, this is how I view the knowledge. I view the knowledge as being like kind of like a golden treasure. And I think that only if you're lucky enough, you get a chance to hear that knowledge and the knowledge that they can share with you. So that's how I treat it.
Kobe was such a student of the game. He knew so much about the history of the game that I'm curious to know how he felt about you and your place in the history of basketball.
Oh, it was really, we had some unbelievable conversations. I don't think you can repeat the language on the air. I used to tell him all the time, I said, you foul too much. I said, you'd be out of the game in no time if you were guarding me. And I said, you know the snake, the black mamba? And he said, yeah. And I said, so you're the black mamba? And he said, yes. I said, you ever hear of a mongoose? I said, I'm a mongoose, and they kill every black mamba. And you can look on YouTube and see these things fighting, and the mongoose wins every time. And he said, I'm not an ordinary mamba. I said, well, I'm not an ordinary mongoose either. And I have a picture of that today in my house. I'm in a coat and tie, and he's in a Laker uniform.
It is a perfect representation of what we've been talking about a little bit, which is They spoke the same language.
100%.
They understood. Well, you understand, I'm not normal. Yeah, neither am I. Yeah, I'll do anything. So will I. And that's where it comes from. That there are a million different crayons in the box, right? And some of them are similar, but they're very rarely where two people look at each other and go, we're cut exactly the same way. We see it exactly the same way. There is no, you wanted a little more. It's even, and it's going to come down to randomness because we're both at the exact same level of intensity, of intelligence, of willingness. And you can hear it. Like, I'm no ordinary Mamba. Yeah, well, I'm no ordinary Mongoose. That is awesome.
These guys have, they have something in common, right? And part of what they have in common could just be the simple of wanting to be great. Part of what they have in common is the competitiveness of that quote that you just had there. You think you're this, well, I think I'm that. The other, I'm sure they saw a lot of things the same way. Let me give as an example. Tonight, Boston Celtics they're a couple games away from championship number 18, and I'm sure there's the tie that Jerry West had to all these players that represented the Los Angeles Lakers. We have a common enemy.
Of course.
Right? And even to tonight, that continues, or Laker fans will always say, okay, well, anybody but the Celtics. And but I'm sure there's ties that those two individuals had together, and in a weird way, Jerry West was looking at himself when he looked at Kobe Bryant, and in another sense, Kobe was looking at Jerry West, like, what you have inside of you is what I have inside of me.
You'll find somebody every once in a while that is so much like you, it is jarring. And think about how they grew. I mean, obviously, with the obvious differences aside, that one is black and one is white, Jerry West grew up very poor and in a rural environment where he struggled every single day. Kobe Bryant was the son of an NBA player. Grew up in Italy. Grew up with, privileged, quite frankly. Not somebody that grew up hard as hell as Jerry West and played in very different eras, and they went about it differently. When they see each other, it's like I don't know what the age gap between the two of them is, probably 40 plus years. It's like, dude, you're me and I'm you. That doesn't happen all that often. When you see it, and then when it's two guys like that, forget it. Absolutely forget it. A lot of great stories that I want to get to, including your stories, your interactions with Jerry West. 877-710 ESPN. We'll take some of those. And Slee, I got more stories about my day that I got to spend with him a long time ago on the golf course, and just something that I love telling these stories, and I'm thrilled that I get to tell them again in light of such an unfortunate situation. Jerry West, again, passed earlier today at the age of 86 years old. We'll continue the conversation on Travis Slee on 710 ESPN.
Jerry West, all day today on the home of Lakers basketball, 710 ESPN.
A life well lived indeed. 86 years old, a three-time member of the Basketball Hall of Fame, a finals MVP on a losing team, only player ever, a NCAA tournament most outstanding player on a losing team, the greatest basketball executive of all time, maybe one of the greatest sports executives of all time, and just the logo of the league, the owner of maybe the greatest nickname of all time, Mr. Clutch. Hey, what do they call you, Mr. Clutch? Like, where do you start? Where do you stop when you're talking about the accomplishments of Jerry West, Al?
Keep going. I mean, honestly, it's funny. Everything that you just said there, 8-time NBA champion as an executive, a 2-time NBA executive of the year, that reminds me of when you just stop giving out the award to the same person because you're going to win every single year. It happens with MVPs and everything else. I think the personal stories that a lot of Laker fans can tell that have some type of a blueprint that has his imprints on your life at some point. I mean, anybody listening right now, I'm sure, is a Laker fan or is an NBA fan. And Jerry West, at some point in your life of you being a fan, whether it's from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, go all the way to today, he touched some of it, right? Some of it either in college, an NBA player, an executive, part of the Lakers, the Grizzlies, the Golden State Warriors, the Clippers. But, of course, his time is going to be most known with the Lakers.
So I've told a couple of portions of this. I'll just give a little background in case you're just jumping into the car right now, or you're just turning on the app, or you're just checking us out on YouTube right now. I got to spend the better part of a day with Jerry West at Bel Air Country Club. I play a friend of mine, Steve Elkington, former tour player, would come through town every once in a while. He would invite me to play golf with him on occasion, and we would frequently go to Bel Air, and we would play with a member. And one of the times we got there, the member that they put us with, or he, set it up, he being Steve Elkington, said, "We're playing with Jerry West today." I'm like, well, you got to be kidding me. There's another guy named Jerry West that's a member at Bel Air Country Club. There's 2 of them.
Sounds like a great guy.
It was that Jerry West. And we were talking with Ramona earlier, and I kind of told her the experience that when I first met him, I introduced myself, he introduced himself to me, and there was a little bit of coolness, between it, because he knew that I was, at the time, producing Jim Rome's radio show, and he said to me, "Yeah, I've been on that show." Just like that, with devoid of inflection or meaning, and I'm like, I don't know quite what this is. And like Ramona said, there were people, reporters, that he would be you called him, he'd call you back. He'd tell you what's going on. But this was in a social situation. I was not there to interview him, and he understood this was, hey, we're going to hang out a little bit. I need to know kind of where we stand. And Steve Elkington kind of vouched for me, and very quickly it warmed up and we had a great day. We're in the grill afterwards, and we're hanging around, and Elk and I are having some beers and having a good time, and Elk's telling a story about Jack Nicklaus, or he's telling a story about, Tiger Woods or whatever it is, and then Jerry West is telling a story about his time in the NBA or this player or that player. And we got to say, and this is what I was telling you earlier when Greg was in here, he starts telling a story about a person. I'm not going to say they were a player, an executive, whatever, just a human being on the earth. And he's halfway to the story. And I don't know how many people were gathered around at this point, 12 or 15. It's a pretty big group because it's a major championship winner and Jerry West. They're chopping it up, and we're all just listening. And he turns, again, there's people around. It's not just me, Elkington, and Jerry West. There's a group of 10 or 12 people. Stops in the middle of the story and turns and looks at me and goes, "You can never tell anybody I said this." And I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good. Like, I can't wait to hear what it was. But it was also one of those, okay, there it is. That's a glimpse at that competitive, tough, like, this is what it's about right now. And I never have, never will, but it was just one of those stories that was so awesome. And just getting inside that little circle for half a second, being with a player that was that extraordinary, an executive that was that extraordinary. And I think I'm not terribly struck by celebrity, generally speaking. It's not something that's particularly interesting to me. That's a pretty famous guy. That's not just, I was on a TV. That's Jerry West. And as a L.A. kid, as somebody who grew up a Laker fan, as somebody that works doing what I do, you hear these names, it was an extraordinary opportunity to be that close to somebody that smart, that interesting, that fun, that intense, that, quite frankly, a little scary at times. Just an unbelievable day.
We'll just add one more thing. I didn't even know this. And actually, I remember it now. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
they don't give those away.
Go ahead and just add that to the list of everything else that you accomplished. It's funny, you tell that story. It's like 5 years ago or so. I went to a dinner. It was like there was an award for, they were honoring some different journalists. Okay. And Jerry West was going to be one of the speakers. And, in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, Jerry West is unbelievable. It's incredible. It's Jerry freaking West. I had a brief conversation with him, not a long conversation with him. But all I literally did, Trav, and this is people that you genuinely admire.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, just wanted to say, throw a couple compliments out there of just unbelievable. I grew up during this era. You really kind of got me into the game basketball, and you did this and that. The moment I just started talking a little bit of basketball, he was in.
Yeah.
Like it was, let's talk some ball. And a 3-4 minute conversation, whatever it was. But I just thought something that kind of sometimes stands out. You could tell a person like that, anybody can talk basketball with him, and it's not going to be one of those, oh my gosh, I got to talk basketball again.
Right.
That's all that was probably running through
this
dude's mind 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's fantastic. Let's try a phone call here. 877-710-ESPN, 877-710-3776, celebrating the life of Jerry West here on the Trav and Slee Show. Let's go to the Valley in Tarzana. Jason, you're up next. Jason, what's up?
Hey, hate to tell the story today of all days, but when I was growing up, I was family friends with John Wooden. Known him for a long time. He had a favorite breakfast spot called Vips. It's in Tarzana as well. I went there with my mom one day, and my mom turns and goes, "Coach!" And he happened to be sitting with Jerry West. And I got to meet Jerry West as an 8-year-old kid. He asked me if I've ever been to a Lakers game. I told him I've been to many. A year later, probably maybe the first 10 games that the Lakers were in the Staples Center, I went to the Staples Center, and I was walking around with my uncle, and I pointed, and I said, "Look, it's Coach's friend." I walked up to Jerry, and I shook his hand, and I said, "Do you remember me?" And he said, "You're John Wooden's. I know you with John Wooden." And I'll never forget that he literally remembered me as a 8-9-year-old child in the Staples Center the first season that they were there.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Jason. That, what I have come to understand, the guys that are real people, not just celebrity creation, but that are real people that happen to become very famous. Mm-hmm. They love it when you're unimpressed by it. And what Jason's talking about is exactly like, oh, you're that guy that I met with Coach Wooden. Like, not quite understanding that, oh, yeah, I've done some stuff too, and when that he remembered him, that he was, you're the guy that is family friends with.
Stood
with
out
Coach
to him because he didn't know him.
I've told the story a million times. It's Key's story when he met Bono from U2 and didn't know who he was, and he's asked, "Well, what do you do?" I'm a musician. Well, good luck with that. To Bono. It's just whenever you run into that.
Bono doesn't have too many stories like that.
No, I met this guy. I guess he's an athlete. They probably neither one of them knew who the other one is. Right. It's just terrific. But you can tell, and I'm sure there are a million stories like that along the way. Let's try another one. Let's go to this goes to the top of the list. Arcadia, California. Go Apaches. David in Arcadia. What's up, David? David.
Hello?
Hello, David.
Yes, sir. You're on, buddy.
Last chance.
Sorry, David hung up.
Yeah, David's gone. Slee, I got to be honest.
Yeah.
A little disappointed in my Apaches.
No, I got to be honest with you, too. You hyped it up like we had the greatest caller coming. And
well, I mean, it's an Arcadia Apache, I'm assuming, or at least he knows of them, so they go to the front of the line.
Come on, David.
Let's do a little better. Let's go a little east. Let's go to the IE in Ontario. And Bruce, you're on with Trav and Slee. What's up, Bruce?
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. A few years ago, I was listening on the radio, and Jerry West was being interviewed, and he was he played in a pro-am, and I believe it was in Riviera Country Club, and they were giving away a hole-in-one prize on each of the par threes. one of the prizes was a new car on one of the par threes. Another prize was a gold watch. Well, Jerry West happened to make a hole in one on one of the par threes, and he was recounting this on the radio, and he said the prize was 2 Laker tickets.
Of course it was.
And when I heard that, I almost fell out of my chair. I thought that was one of the funniest stories I'd ever listened to. Well, Jerry's a great golfer in his own right, so it didn't surprise me. But it was just so funny.
It's terrific.
It was just so ironic that he got those tickets. So.
Yeah, I bet he had access to some tickets along the way. Thank you for the call, Bruce. It's funny. So kind of going back to the day that I got to spend with him. And I really am not trying to make this about me in any meaningful way, but these just remind me of the day that I got to spend with him. And I got to spend a lot of time with Steve Elkington. Steve Elkington won something like 14 tournaments on the PGA Tour. He won the PGA Championship at Riviera Country Club. He was a 2-time Players Championship winner. He's a golf Hall of Famer. He's a terrific player. He did not throw around compliments easily. Okay? It would never be, you're pretty good. That's a pretty good shot. It was no matter how good of a shot you hit, I don't know, man. Not good. Like, he was a tough critic. Great guy, but he was not
competitive. You can't turn it off.
He was not telling you, you're pretty good. You got a little nice action there. Yeah. It was you stink, right? It was very tough. We're playing with Jerry West that one time. He turns to me and he says, not to Jerry, to me, that guy would have not only played on the tour if he wanted to, he would have been really good. So the story about the hole in one does not surprise, because he watched him hit a few golf balls. And Jerry West, I think, he held the course record at Bel Air for a lot of time. Like, this wasn't a guy that played on the weekend was pretty good. He was professional caliber good. That another guy who had won multiple tournaments on the PGA Tour goes, watch how he swings. He goes, that's tour level action. And this time Jerry's probably in his 50s.
Sure.
It wasn't just that guy's got a pretty good swing for a 50-year-old. It's that guy could have played the tour had he wanted to and would have won out there. That's the sort of compliment.
You ever hear people say this, that they can't turn it, they're competitive in everything. They just can't turn it off. It could be a youth event, and they're like, I'm going to go ahead and score. I'm going to make sure I win 10-0, whatever the case is. Guys like that, I'm with you. They can't, and I feel like they feel, I'll use Jerry West as an example here, hey, if I cut a couple corners here, even though it's golf and it's not something that I genuinely have to take serious, then I'm going to cut a couple corners. Like, they didn't get to where they did in life by not being competitive or
they
taking
simply
seriously.
Can't.
They can't. No, they can't.
It would be like asking them, hey, just don't breathe for a while. Yeah, it's not an option for me. I can't do it.
A minute.
I'm going to try to destroy you in this casual Tuesday afternoon golf tournament. More of your phone calls coming up in just a little bit. We're going to get to as many of those as we can. The Dodgers did make a move as well, so I want to get into that a little bit, and then we'll get back into Jerry West as well, celebrating the life of one of the great NBA people of all time who died earlier this morning at 86 years old. More on Jerry West and the Dodger move coming up in just a little bit. It's Trav and Slee, 710 ESPN. And you're driving around listening to Al and I this morning, do me a favor, take a look at that little sticker in the window of your car. What does it say? Are you overdue? Are you ready for some service? If you are, head into your neighborhood Valvoline Instant Oil Change, home of the 15-minute drive-through oil change, because they've been taking care of you, they've been taking care of me, they've been taking care of people all over the place for over 30 years with quick and convenient automotive maintenance services for people that are busy like you and me, right? We don't have all day to sit around and wait in that weird waiting room, not at Valvoline. At Valvoline, you stay in your car, nice and safe, nice and relaxed, listening to Trav and Slee, maybe checking out a podcast, texting some friends, maybe closing your eyes for 5 minutes while the expert technicians at Valvoline go to work on your car, making sure that it is at its best. Oil changes, tire rotations, transmission care, and a whole lot more. Just pull up, drive in, and drive out in about 15 minutes. And wherever you are, that's where they are. 80 locations ready to help you get your ride ready for the road in no time at all. So visit SoCalOilChange.com for one of those 80 locations and game-winning coupons off of your next Valvoline Instant Oil Change.
At Progressive, we know
Basketball, 710 ESPN.
All right, we will continue to have the conversation about Jerry West's incredible life as a player, as an executive, as a person in and around and literally on every single NBA jersey for the last, half century or so. Just an amazing life. Little other news as well in and around the sports world. The Dodgers made an acquisition. They made a trade with the Toronto Blue Jays. Kevin Biggio, who is the son of Craig Biggio, was DFA'd by the Toronto Blue Jays. Earlier, the Dodgers picked him up. They're going to add him to their team. They sent out a minor league pitcher in exchange for Kevin Biggio. And this could, Slee, feel like the beginning of maybe Chris Taylor getting a phantom injury or being DFA'd in his own right. They owe him a lot of money, so maybe it wouldn't be that. But Kevin Biggio comes in. He got off to a great start in his career and looked like he was going to be, because they had this weird thing in Toronto where they had the sons of 3 former major leaguers on their roster, Biggio, Bo Bichette, and Vlad Guerrero Jr. So they had those 3 guys. It's like, wow, just another generation. Yep. Bichette and Guerrero stuck and have thrived. Not so much for Kevin Biggio. Maybe a fresh start in L.A. will do him some good.
Yeah, and, the Dodgers there's no guarantee this will work or anything like that, but it's very low risk. The Dodgers have been known to take some chances on some players and bring them in and see if they can make a difference. And I think for the Dodgers, it's funny. For me, I think the thing that I noticed with the trade is just the mere fact that they made a trade with Toronto. Just because we have heard Bo Bichette's name be mentioned around the Dodgers in the past, maybe that starts a little bit of something there. There's a relationship there, a conversation there. Could be something along those lines. I did give that a little bit of thought. That I thought it was interesting. It came from Toronto, but very low risk. But the Dodgers obviously feel like they need to add something.
He's having a year that is not great. He's hitting 200. He's got an on-base percentage of 291. He's slugging 323, so he's really not doing a whole lot. His career numbers are a little bit better than that, but what he does do is he plays a lot of different positions. You can kind of play him at a couple of different infield positions. You could play him in the outfield if you needed to. And
super utility.
I think this is one of those things. If it works, it's found money, and if it doesn't, oh well, you keep it going. But I really do think this is the beginning of the Dodgers starting to tinker with what they have. The old baseball adage is the first 2 months of the season are to see what you have. The next 2 months of the season, which is where we are right now, is to try to build whatever you think you might be missing. And then the final 2 months of the season is, here we go, let's play with it. And we're just at the beginning of that tinkering stage, and I think Biggio kind of falls into that category.
Yeah, and any moves that they're making, the idea and the concept is it's not necessarily because you're fighting for the division.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily because you're fighting to grab a wild card spot or anything like that, but you're trying to keep up with the Phillies. You're trying to keep up with the Yankees.
Sure.
You're trying to keep up with Baltimore, Cleveland, some other teams out there that are right around where the Dodgers are.
So we'll get back to Jerry West in just 1 second. Jorge, you were at the game last night?
I was.
Dude, that 6th inning was nutso. 4 jacks, and that was not including Will Smith's 3-run homer.
Yep.
That was not including Mookie's bases-loaded 3-run double.
Right.
What was it like with 4 balls leaving the ballpark in the span of what could that couldn't have been more than 6 minutes or so.
Hold on. So it's my first game this season. So we get, the Parker and it was Parker, Graham, and myself.
Okay.
We show up a little late because, we have to wrap things up, and we show up a little late. It was Joe Kelly jersey night.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
We got there a little too late, so we didn't get it, whatever. But we're walking around. It's just electric, man.
Yeah.
Like people getting food, people getting stuff. But then when Ohtani's up to bat, we stop. We're on our way to our seats. And Parker's like, hold on, man. So Ohtani's up. We can't walk and watch Ohtani as we're doing this. So we
sure, but you could walk and do it when Mookie's up.
Right, exactly.
The hell.
Hold on. So we're walking around, man, and finally we get to our seats, and then there was just something like people are doing the wave, just the electricity in there. It was pretty cool. Then when Ohtani's up to bat, I take my phone out and I'm like, man, what are the chances I get a home run? Boom. I get it. It's so steady. I'm even, guys, no tripod. I'm all, like it's super steady. This video right now, I just checked, 9.5 thousand views on Twitter. Okay, some of it's already making its rounds in Japan because some of them we have to translate to see what they're saying.
Yeah,
they love the video. They love Parker's all over the video. And at the end, it's like, yeah, Ohtani.
That's
so we
great.
see that, right? So I'm like, okay, cool, feeling myself because I got an Ohtani home run. Then Freeman hits it. And then the sixth inning, and then Parker's like, boys, I think we're in for the greatest inning in this season so far. And I think the Dodgers are the first team to hit 4 home runs in one inning.
They went back to back, and you're like, okay, that's amazing because it's Ohtani, it's Freeman, and they get 2 more.
Yeah. So this is what that inning looked like. Mookie, he walked. Shohei, home run. Freeman, home run. Will Smith, single. Teoscar Hernandez, home run. Andy Pages, single. Jason Hayward, home run. And that was just, hold on. And then to top it off, Rojas starts it with the first out, ends it with the third out. And that was your inning.
If that's not a microcosm of the Dodger lineup in a nutshell, is that the one guy makes 2 outs towards the bottom of the order. It's like the top is so incredibly dynamic that they make 0 outs. It was something else.
We're walking out when Chris Taylor's up to bat. So we're like, yep, 102 ERA. What is it? His batting average 102?
He'd have to get hot to get to 102. But yeah, it's Cavan Biggio is on the way, and we'll see what that looks like. It's funny.
It's got to be a cool experience.
Oh,
it was dope, man.
Being there,
I've never experienced 4 home runs like that in one inning.
And there, it's the Dodgers, and it's Shohei Ohtani. It's not just an inning where a few guys got lucky, and most of them haven't been an all-star. It's big names too.
So every pitch, I have every pitch from that at bat. I'm like, delete. I'm like, okay, this one's got to be it. And boom, home run. I'm like, awesome.
Dude, with the sound that the ball makes coming off of his bat. And look, like you said, Al, it's not like Freddie Freeman's hitting knuckleballs off the end of the bat. It's not like Mookie can barely get the ball. Those guys smoke it too. Jason Hayward's was a rocket as well.
Yeah.
Ohtani's are just different. They sound different. They carry differently. And I can't imagine the anxiety that knowing I'm behind in the count to Shohei Ohtani, and I got to throw a pitch kind of sort of over the middle of the plate because I'd be worried about my safety at that point. You're only 55 feet away by the time you let the ball go, and he can hit it over the damn scoreboard. Pretty terrifying.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of Dodger fans, it's like wherever they go, there's some kind of story around the Dodgers, and certainly from a positive perspective. So,
you know what's also funny? For the longest time, I've only heard the name Cavan Biggio. I thought his name was Gavin.
You just thought people were saying it wrong?
No, I just heard, Cavan, Gavin, they sound relatively similar.
Yeah.
And so I'd never written it down before. And I was like, his name is Cavan? What is that?
I've heard of one person named Cavan, and it's him. That's it. That's not a name that I'm familiar with. I haven't had a chance. More Jerry West conversation coming up in just a little bit, to be sure. And Sliwa, after Factor Cap, I kind of want to get into the fact that I don't know if there's a higher compliment you could pay someone than saying when they call and ask you for a trade, you just hang up the phone because you say, I know I'm going to get wiped out. And that was Jerry West. It's coming up, but not before Factor Cap, which is next. It's Travis Lee, 710 ESPN.
Hey, it's
Recruiter.com/free.
It is Travis and Sliwa. We're here each weekday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it's time for Factor Cap.
Oh, that's cap. That's so cap, Dad.
Everything I've said is a cap, but I'm going to go back.
First of all, it's not a cap. It's
no, it
just
is a cap.
Welcome to Factor Cap.
Hey guys.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. I've been a little distracted last segment because I found out some very upsetting news in regards to my favorite safe place,
which is
Alamo Drafthouse. Sony Pictures acquired Alamo Drafthouse Cinema in a landmark deal that puts studios back into theaters. So maybe my beloved safe space, my little indie theater that was like the upstart little kid, is now going to be owned by Sony.
Are they just going to show Avenger movies the whole time?
Well, no, it wouldn't be
God,
Avenger movies. It would be Spider-Man movies, like the Spider-Man that are not
Spider-Verse is the only one I want.
Marvel. Yeah,
they did Madam Web. They did Madam Web.
I watched Madam Web the other week. It's so bad. It's
I'll take
so
your word
bad.
for it.
Don't watch it.
Yeah. Or watch
I will
it.
also take your word for it because I'm not going to watch it either.
Good luck, Em. Hang in there.
Anyway.
It's so good, it's funny, right?
Yeah, so good, it's funny. Okay, so I know we're going to talk about Jerry West throughout the show today. We're going to have more people calling. We had Magic Johnson just tweeted out about his statement about it, so we can do that at 11:45. But other Laker news this week was that Dan Hurley will not be the Lakers' next head coach. He will return to UConn. I know, shocking.
Dun, dun, dun.
But his wife, Andrea Hurley, posted this on her Instagram story. So, Travis, listen to me. This is how you do an Instagram story.
Okay.
She was tagged in an Instagram story, which is something that disappears 24 hours later. So she was tagged in an Instagram story with Dan, her, and looks like some friends saying that they're glad that Dan is staying in UConn, and they are at Sayulita in Glastonbury, which is kind of like a seafood Mexican place, like mariscos and stuff like that. So she then takes that, she was tagged in this Instagram posts her own Instagram post, and you see that in the background.
So it was within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we know how to do Instagram posts, Travis. And she says Sayulita Glastonbury was one of the was first on the negative side of our list. So basically, she's saying on her pros and cons list, jokingly, that Sayulita Glastonbury, a Mexican food place in Connecticut, was a big reason why she wouldn't want to move to Los Angeles. Yeah, Andrea really knows how to talk about her Mexican food. We'll trust her on that one. So,
best tasting beans on that side of the
think about this. You guys got a job offer to leave LA somewhere else is offering you to leave LA. I know that we have family obligation, we have home obligation, we have all this. So put that aside. Non-serious things, like, my love for In-N-Out, my need to have great tacos, things like that. So non-serious, there's a non-negotiable for you to stay in Los Angeles. Travis, Factor Cap.
I think it's cap, but so when I moved to Houston briefly, and this is going to sound insane because the state of Texas has a very long border with Mexico. You would think there would be a lot of good Mexican food in Houston.
Not happening.
I'm sure it's there. I was never able to find it. And trust me when I tell you, I looked. Okay? I found a couple places that were good, but not what I'm looking for here in L.A.
Surprised. I didn't know that.
I would go for money is a great motivator for me. So there is no I'm not leaving without. But when I was in there and I couldn't get, and maybe it's more of a Southern California twist on classic Mexican food than anything else, but I missed it desperately in the nearly 2 years I was there.
All right, Berg, a non-negotiable thing that would keep you in LA.
So I'm kind of with Trav here that it's cap because I think I can always be negotiated with. I can always figure out a way to go somewhere. But I think sushi, if you're going with just the food, I'm not trusting sushi in Kansas. Like, they're not next to the ocean. I don't want to get sushi.
Got to get on an airplane at some point.
Yeah.
What if there's an
sushi
Albertsons in Kansas?
That is all about. That's
sushi.
Trav. I go to Gelson's for their sushi.
I also think it'd be a Kroger if it was in Kansas.
Probably.
Dominic's. Yeah.
Stater Brothers. Do they have them out there? Which is delicious out their stuff. But yeah, I think sushi. I'm just such a huge sushi fan. I can have it in morning, noon, and night, and I would need that.
Al?
Yeah. Listen, I'll lean towards cap too because you just never know. I mean, if the money was right and the opportunity was right, like to just say that there's not a non-negotiable, I lean towards cap. The one thing that I will say, and I don't think it's serious, but it is very important, our weather is we are so spoiled with the weather, and we don't know what real weather is. We just genuinely don't. You know what real weather is. I have no idea what real weather is.
You live in San Diego.
This
where it's
is
better than here.
This is San Diego and L.A. There's a 2-hour. This is it. This is all that I've seen. I
Should
spent
move
time
to Santa
in.
Barbara.
Same deal.
I don't even know what would happen in my head if tomorrow I lived in Connecticut. Like, how would I go through a winter? Like, I've never experienced it.
Tell that to Cody Lou.
I think I got a little bit of that. That's right. Cody's about to face that.
Cody will be fine.
Shout out Python. Jorge?
No, I would go for the money as well. I can cook my own Mexican food. I just had Yolita. It's in Nayarit. It's off of the coast, off of the Pacific Ocean.
But you're going to have to be able to go to a grocery store to get the things you need to cook your Mexican food.
And if I can't make it, guess what? Hey, Brenda, ship me something.
Jorge, you know what's going to end up happening? Wherever you end up going, you're going to end up opening up a restaurant, and you're going to kill it because nobody else has any good Mexican food.
Best tacos in Cleveland.
No asada.
An asada-free Mexican restaurant. There we go.
I actually made carne asada burritos last night myself. So
and
don't
really
give
good.
any.
They turn out.
It was super yummy.
If you make your own, it's cool. It's just look. If you go to a certain
You're not
spot,
selling anyone on this position.
No,
you're not turning us around.
You're
on this.
it's sixth on your list.
It's been
you are
sitting
out.
there.
You're
How
done
long
with the
has
carne
that been
asada.
sitting there, bro? Come on, man.
All right. So today on this day in 1981 was when Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark was released, and so Steven Spielberg has put his name onto so many iconic, nostalgia-driven movies that we all love. Even if you weren't around at that time, you still learn to love it later in your life. So Indiana Jones movies. So I'm going to put all of them together. Indiana Jones movies that Steven Spielberg directed are his best movies. Berg, Factor Cap.
They are really good. I mean, I would need a list of his movies in front of me to say whether.
Okay, I pulled up the list.
Like because he has so many, I can't.
Jurassic Park
was
under
great.
his list.
I think I would go with
Jaws, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Schindler's
I'm
List,
still
Saving Private Ryan.
It's Cap. It's just there's so many. Like if you wanted a whole genre,
AI.
AI was a good movie. Is it the last 3 that he didn't do, or did he?
It's the first 3 that he did.
He did. He didn't do these like Kingdom of the
It's
Crystal
Last
Skull
Crusade and what's the second one again? Temple of Doom.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they're great, but no, I can't say they're the best. Cap.
Al?
Yeah, it's Cap for me. He's just got too many. We were just doing a list of all the unbelievable, ridiculous accolades of what Jerry West has accomplished in his career.
Steven Spielberg.
You can't even you can't stop at one and appreciate it. I think this is a good example because he's got so many iconic movies. Indiana Jones is great, but for me, there's others on the list that I appreciate. I enjoy more.
Maybe a good draft.
Hook was amazing.
Emily loves Hook.
That's right.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of
I
all
know
time.
it is.
Maybe this is a good draft. Trev?
It's a good idea, by the way. It's Cap. Here's why. I don't know jack squat about movies. I know what I like, right? But I can't tell you that, I like this style or that style. I just either like it or I don't. The fact that off the top of my head I could just list 10,
you had like 8.
And they're all like legendary blockbusters and really, really well done. That just tells you that one of his properties can't be the best of his properties, that all of it is just extraordinary. And unpopular opinion coming, Raiders of the Lost Ark is awesome. The rest of them kind of suck.
Last Crusade was really good.
I didn't like it.
With Sean Connery?
Raiders,
No?
Didn't hit me. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I loved. Great movie. The rest of them, just not feeling.
What was the one with Short Round? Was he on?
That was the
Temple of Doom.
Third one.
No, Crusade was the third one.
Then the second one.
The second one, Temple
like
of Doom.
Like I said, they did. That's the
Short
one where he
Round.
reaches in the heart and twists it out. Yeah.
They were like
With
eating
now
stuff.
Oscar-winning Kiwi Kwan.
That's right.
Jorge?
Yeah, I recently watched all of these with. I was trying to get Maite into it. She just went off and played with her toys. So Brenda and I started watching the whole series. I like them, but I don't think they're the greatest ones. So yeah.
All right, so you guys know that I recently moved into a new apartment, and the other day my roommate was, out on our, porch, just, chilling out, enjoying the weather, and we have it's a duplex, a 4-unit duplex, and so the person on the diagonal of us on the bottom floor.
So 4-plex.
Would you like me to continue?
Go ahead.
So then she comes out, she talks to us, and she's like, she started to tell my roommate the story of the people who lived there before us.
In your place.
And our place, and, why they left, and what, not great tenants, what kind of tenants they were, whatever.
Okay.
and just kind of like it was more of a thing. I was like, I just don't want to know. I don't need to know who these people were before us. I don't want to know what their habits were. I don't want to know anything. I want to live in blissful ignorance that I'm the first person to live in this apartment, and though I know that's not true. So, you don't want to know the backstory for places. You would rather live in blissful ignorance. Al, Dr. Cap.
It's Cap. I don't have a problem with it as long as you're not telling me, like, hey, there was somebody that died in this unit right before you got in here. If it's just simple tenants, tenants being tenants. And
But what if you loved that place and you didn't know that someone died in it, but you loved that place so much and nothing was going to happen?
So, short of that, like if something happened that has a twist that I don't want to know about, then that would change my entire experience in that unit. Period. If it's just, there were a couple idiots living here. You know what? They were a little too loud. They were this, they were that. That part I don't really care about.
Trev?
I don't care if I know or I don't know. I bought a house that the guy died in. Didn't stop me for 1 second. I like the house. It's fine. Because when you buy, you have to disclose that.
Well, how did he die?
Right? Not my business to tell. I'll tell you off the air. I don't know,
but like if you're brutally murdered, that's
it was not murdered, but it also was not a.
Would that change your?
No, I like the house.
Oh,
Had a
that
pool.
would change my.
It was on a nice street. It was in a nice school district. There wasn't a lot of. Yeah, I'll take that. Let's go. And you have
might
to
get
disclose
10% off.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
And we were in a bidding war. No, I don't care. Look, if there was a ritual sacrifice, I'm out.
It was a meth lab.
People die.
Or that every person that's lived in there has left really quickly afterwards.
But no, it's like, because the realtor's like, I do need to disclose. I don't care. Let's go. No.
Berg?
I want to say that I won't care, but I think I would care. I think if it was something like, it was a gentrified thing where they made it really nice, but it used to be like a crack den or something like that, and people just randomly showed up at my house. I wouldn't want to live in that spot because someone could randomly just show up and be like, "Oh, I used to come here and do bad stuff."
Yeah.
So I think that's stuff I want to know. And if someone was brutally murdered, I'm out.
Walking
I'm
away.
out.
Yeah,
I don't like. I actually believe in ghosts. I'm sure not everybody does here, but I fully do, and I don't need any evil spirits hanging over the place I love, no matter how much I love it. I know you think I'm ridiculous. I can see it in your face.
Yeah, it's up to you. Good. Hopefully we go for the same house at some point, and somebody had a heart attack in there.
No,
I don't care.
Fine. Heart attack's fine. I'm talking like brutal murder.
I'm with you.
Jorge?
No, and I wouldn't want to know like how somebody dies. If somebody dies, like you said, people die all the time anyway. So if it happens to be in that house, whatever, I will still go for the house because I'm gonna like the house and it's gonna make memories of my own in that place.
No neighbors over the backyard fence. It was a pretty good setup. Hey, this happened. Like, that's it. Yeah, cool. Let's go. Let's get it done. All right. We're going to get back into the life of Jerry West, who earlier today passed at the age of 86 years old. And I think we talked about the acquisition of Kobe maybe being near the top of his greatest achievements. I think there's one other that's very, very close. That's coming up next. It's Travis Lee, 710 ESPN. Got the NBA Finals tonight, Al?
Oh, yeah.
We've got Major League Baseball. There's all sorts of things that you can get with on Prize Picks because Prize Picks is super fun and it's super easy. You put Prize Picks on your phone, you pick between 2 and 6 players, and then you decide whether or not you like more or less on their projections. If you took a Dodger player last night and they hit a home run, you probably hit the more. If you took a Rangers pitcher and took the more, you probably took the L. But that's Prize Picks. Pick between 2 and 6, more or less, you can win up to 25 times your money.
All right, I got my picks right now. So NBA Finals, like Trav mentioned, coming up tonight. By the way, you can start tuning in right here at 5:30. We'll be covering the NBA Finals. Kyrie Irving, more or less than 23.5 points. Kyrie's got to get going. If Dallas has any chance of coming back in this series, it's got to come from Kyrie. So I'll go more than on this one because the Mavs are desperate. Jaylen Brown, more or less than 23.5 points. I'll go less. Again, the NBA Finals, you get a chance to watch games. Even though your team's not playing, you could still have some action in the game. And also a quick reminder here. Take advantage of this special offer. Download the app today. Use that code 710. For a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code 710 for Prize Picks for a deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
West, all day today on the home of Lakers basketball, 710 ESPN.
One of the great Lakers of all time, one of the great NBA players of all time, Jerry West passed earlier at 86 years old. We've been talking about his life, his accomplishments, his impact on not just the Lakers, a lot of the Lakers, but the NBA as a whole. And so I think we both agree that they're all kind of tied for first, but maybe if there is a 1A, it was the acquisition of Kobe Bryant. And we've all heard the story about he brings in Michael Cooper to work him out. And Kobe's just having his way with Michael Cooper, and Jerry West pulls him aside and says, hey, listen, I need you to really give this kid the business. I need to see what he's got. And he's like, I'm trying.
That's all I got.
What do you want from me?
We're not Michael Cooper here. We're
he's
not
killing
talking about
me.
some random guy.
Right. It wasn't some guy at the Y who it was Michael Cooper. So I think we're on the same page that that's probably at the top of the list. But I think in the mix for the top spot is simply the fact that his track record as an executive, and Kobe's the perfect example of this, where he traded him to the Hornets for Vlade Divac and got the opportunity to select him, was if he wanted to do a deal with you, you better be really buttoned up with what you're doing, because he's probably going to take you to the hoop. And not in like a devious, backhanded way. It's just that I know more about this. I can see things that you can't see. If he said to me, hey, I'll give you my guy for your guy, the answer is no. Even if I think it sounds good to me, obviously that you want him means that I don't see something that's about to happen.
I'd say something funny. You know, one of the more lopsided trades that we all kind of think about, and Jerry West was involved, but he was involved on the other end of it. Jerry West traded Pau Gasol to the Los Angeles Lakers. And a lot of people look at that. A lot of people look at that, and it's like, hey, he was doing the Lakers, giving them an assist, this, that. I think people forget. First off, Marc Gasol was part of the deal. Marc Gasol was one of the greatest players to ever represent the Memphis Grizzlies. He was. And they had a great playoff run with Marc Gasol. And it looked like it was just, and I get it, I completely understand it was, you know.
One's a Hall of Famer, the other one's not.
One's a Hall of Famer, and it was Kwame Brown, and it was, you know, all that stuff that goes down. But I think the thing that you have to recognize, and I think this happens a lot in sports, every time a deal is made, there's a certain team or a franchise that you're like, they did it again? And the Lakers have been associated with that for so many years. And a lot of that is because when people compliment Dr. Jerry Buss, what was Dr. Jerry Buss known for more than anything else? I'm going to put the right people in the place. I'm going to get the hell out of the way, right? I put Jerry West there, so why the hell am I going to be there every single day and try to have my hands on the upper? I already put the best in the business there. When I need to jump into place, I will jump in place. But I love what you said about there's certain organizations, and certainly Jerry West, if he's calling your team, it's like, we're going to go ahead and look the other way, because he just knows more than anybody else, and he sees something that I don't see. So I might as well not just do a deal with him, because when the dust settles, it's going to look lopsided because Jerry West was involved.
I also think that something we can't discount too, and I think that maybe I have this because of where I grew up, and I don't have an accent, but I've been around a lot of people that have an accent, or I have like for certain words. But sometimes when you got a little bit of a drawl or you got a little bit of an accent, people underestimate you.
I think you're right.
And I think that Jerry used that to his advantage. No matter how much accolades he has, no matter how great he was as a player, how great he was as an executive, there's something about a drawl that lulls you to sleep and lulls you into false sense of security, which can be advantageous as an executive. You're talking you into bad deals.
I agree with you. Like I think the surgeon, the Dr. James Andrews, who does all the elbows, or at least he did till Dr. Elatrosh started doing all the elbows. His headquarters is in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm like, okay, that's unusual, but whatever. And then I heard him like, wait, what? Exactly what Emily's talking about. It's like, well, of course he could be a brilliant surgeon. That's the dumbest thing, but we have these predispositions to all of this. If he called me and said, hey, you've got 4 quarters, I've got $1. Do you mind if we just swap that? No, I don't think so. I don't know why you need my quarters, but there's something that you know about quarters that I don't know, even though it sounds like a good deal. Or if you said, hey, I got $2, but I need your 4 quarters. I need to go buy some out of the vending machine. It won't take paper money. Yeah, I don't know. One of those is probably like a special edition from the somewhere, somewhat. He just was able to see it so much differently than anybody can have a good day, make a good trade.
Yeah.
Anybody can have a bad day and make a bad trade. But when you're on the right side of it, over and over and over again, to the tune of these deals over and over and over again, you know more than the other guy.
It's funny you say it because I remember him. That just kind of sparked something. Do you remember when Blake Griffin was traded?
Yeah.
Traded from the
to
Clippers
the Pistons, right? Yeah.
I think Chris Paul was traded around the same time as well. And I remember him saying something to that effect. He's like, I got, if I'm playing, whether, I don't know if the equivalent he was giving was poker or something along those. I got one $10 poker chip, and I can't do anything with this $110. I got much better chances if I can make it. Give me 10 $1 poker chips and let me kind of start figuring this out and starting to rebuild it. It's not for us. It's easy to talk about what he did with the Lakers, but don't forget. I guarantee you they're having conversations right now up in the Bay in San Francisco, talking about predicaments and situations about when Jerry West was involved and got involved. Michael's going to be in here a little bit later. I'm sure Michael Thompson is going to be able to tell stories. There's the famous story of the ownership of the Golden State Warriors wanted to trade Klay Thompson, and basically Jerry West put himself in front. If he goes, I go. Just and I'm sure there's a lot of franchises that have stories like
with
this.
No disrespect to Kevin Love, who's had a wonderful NBA career, he realized, no, you don't understand.
I got the greatest backcourt.
Those two guys together are going to go smash everybody. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have both of them, it's not going to work quite the way that I need it to work. That's the vision that not a lot of people have. Let's try another phone call. If you want to get in and tell your Jerry West memories, stories, by all means. 877-710-ESPN, 877-710-3776. Let's go to the Valley again in Encino and Walrus. Walrus, you're on with Travis Lee. What's up?
Good afternoon, everyone. When I think about Jerry West, I think about 2 words. I think about humility and resiliency. I mean, such a humble man. And the resiliency of losing all of those championships to the Celtics, all those finals, but sticking with it, finally winning in 72. It really should be an example to all the young people who may be listening. Don't ever give up. Keep at it. Keep at it. You never know when you can finally break through. And for us Lakers fans, this guy is where it all started. I mean, Elgin brought the team over from Minneapolis, but I mean, Jerry West, the logo, Mr. Clutch, he's like Zeus on our pantheon, if you will, as Lakers fans. So rest in peace. Nothing but the best for his family. Big loss, but just such a great guy. So thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for sharing. He's talking about the Zeus, the pantheon, right? I really don't think that you can overstate the importance of the timing of his arrival in Los Angeles, of the Lakers' arrival in Los Angeles. That, I'm not old enough to remember it, but there was a time in the not super distant past where LA was not a major league town. That they didn't have we got, not only have everything now, we got 2 of everything now. You got 2 football teams, basketball, hockey, MLS, 2 major universities, 2 of everything.
UCLA.
All of it. And not only 1, we got 2 of everything. There was a time where we might have 1 of this or 1 of that, but we didn't have a lot. Dodgers show up. Vin Scully, along with Sandy Koufax and other guys, made the Dodgers LA's. Well, Jerry West showing up in Los Angeles at more or less the same time made the Lakers LA's. Not just because he was a good player, he was a great player. He represented the team. He only played with the one team his entire career. He had year after year of close calls, couldn't get it done. You started to share and empathize with the struggles that he had. You wanted him to succeed. And it wasn't just Jerry's struggles, it was the city's struggles, not being able to get over the hump, not being able to stamp as a world championship city with an NBA basketball team. The Dodgers punched their ticket relatively quickly after coming to LA 59, but the Lakers had to go through all of this stuff before we were finally able to do it. You develop a relationship with people, and that's why when the word Zeus and Pantheon gets thrown around, it doesn't seem the least bit hyperbolic, because If the team just shows up and they kind of stink and they don't have anybody that goes through it for a long time, it's like, yeah, we got one. That's cool. But why don't? But when you got that and that dude, it hits entirely differently.
They're up on the TV right now. NBA Today is doing a piece right now on Jerry West, and it says most notable moves from Jerry West, and it's a photo of Kobe, or him handing Kobe the Laker jersey, and then it's him with Shaquille O'Neal, and then it's Jerry West bringing in Phil Jackson. Icon after icon. Think about the moves, the names that I just mentioned. When I tell you, give me some of the greatest names associated in the NBA, he's got a tie to all of them. But he's above all of them when it comes to just an executive and what he was able to put together. So it's nice to see not just a local sports radio station, not that I'm surprised or shocked, but everyone honoring Jerry West today. And then we'll see what they do tonight for the NBA Finals as well.
More of your phone calls coming up in just a little bit. 877-710-ESPN. And Slee, I got to play a round of golf with Jerry West, and I got a very cool moment with him that I want to tell you about next. It's Travis Slee, 710 ESPN.
Radio station. Remembering Jerry West all day today on the home of Lakers basketball, 710 ESPN.
A life well lived. 86 years old, Jerry West passed today, and we've talked a lot about all the accomplishments that he's been able to stack up in his long and distinguished life. And I really do think that it bears repeating that he came from about as difficult a circumstances as you could possibly imagine, right? He grew up in rural West Virginia, in extreme poverty, in a home that was anything but stable. And he carried that with him his entire life. We talked with Ramona earlier today, and she was talking about that, and that these were insecurities and other personality traits that he's, like all of us, the stuff that happens to us when we're young people, especially kids, it's stuff you carry around for a really long time. And it's kind of up to you to how you get through it. Does it affect you negatively? Do you use it as some sort of motivation or starting point to tell a different story? And I don't know if anybody told a more different story than the situation that was probably the most likely one for him to end up in, and the one that he ultimately did end up in, which was a wildly famous and respected and accomplished executive, player, friend. And to get where he got from where he started, it defies explanation.
You can see too, all the statements are out. LeBron's got something, right? Michael Jordan said something. Magic has a really, really lengthy piece on Jerry West and his respect for Jerry West and how he got to know him. Adam Silver, of course. I mean, you go down the list. There's going to be a lot of people. I love, and when we talked to Ramona a little bit earlier, one of the things that I think stood out to me more than anything else, I love how she said, so many of the great players today would go to Jerry or have conversations with Jerry West about the game and maybe predicaments or situations or whatever the case is.
Experiences.
And that's why I kind of find so fascinating that Jerry West can have a conversation with LeBron James, and LeBron could sit there and say, yeah, you know where I'm coming from. How many people can LeBron sit with and say, you know where I'm coming from. Let me not even go LeBron. Let's go Kevin Durant. Let's go Steph Curry. Let's go pick whoever you want in the NBA. I love that Ramona mentioned that.
I wrote down exactly what she said because it resonated. She said he has 30 years of NBA superstars as friends. That 30 years. Not, hey, I was a great player. Michael Jordan's a great player. We got to know each other a little bit. That if you were a superstar in this league over the last 30 years, you probably counted Jerry West among one of your friends because of what you just said. Hey, we can talk about it. I know what that feels like. I dealt with that. I know what you're going through, and not like hey, I can tell you, but let me tell you what happened to me and how I dealt with it. Or let me tell you how this is going to end because I've been through it 10 times and it always ends the same way. He knew.
You know what's probably different in his shoes as well. Usually when you think of greats, you just think, hey, he was 6-0 in the NBA Finals.
Right.
When you think of greats, you think Magic he went 5-4.
Yeah.
But he beat the Celtics a couple of times, right? Kobe got 5 under his belt. When you think of the greats, that's what you think of. What made Jerry West so unique? Yeah, that wasn't happening when he was a player.
No.
That I wonder if they could connect to him because they knew how great he was. Yeah, he is the logo, but also the dude kept failing in the NBA finals. Not on him, but just that's unique in itself. How many people do you know that was crowned an MVP of the NBA Finals and they didn't win?
There's one.
One. It's Jerry West. How many do you know that is the logo and is considered one of the greatest to ever do it, but did not have the success in the NBA Finals year in and year out